Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Respawn Station podcast. My name's Nick Sivak, and I'm joined by Sri Kandula.
Hello, everybody. Well, we didn't mean to start you off with a jump scare, but, sometimes we got to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, I got to change things up every once in a while. Like I said, you're listening to the Respawn Station podcast. It is our weekly gaming podcast. And this week, we got some predictions. We're going to be guessing about the Summer Gaming Showcases, specifically Summer Game Fest and the Xbox Games Showcase, because those are right around the corner here. And it's fun to just guess about what's going to show up at those different showcases and what kind of games we're going to be excited to see. We also have a bunch of different news topics, like Apple throwing their ring into gaming for like the 50th time, and also an Elden Ring.
This time, though.
Yep, an Elden Ring movie coming out, or being made, but maybe we'll see.
Yeah, we can't say coming out. We don't know when. We don't know what happens.
I'm thinking a little bit too far ahead there. So, but yeah, before we get into all of that, Sri, we have a very important question that we always start off with. What are you playing this week?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, I've been on a very much so a movie binge, and you know what? I think that's the beauty of having multiple hobbies. I was looking back at it. I keep a very good track of everything. Like I have GG for my video games, I have Letterboxd for my movies, and I think it was March. I think I clocked like 6 or 7 movies total, in the entire month.
Mm-hmm.
In May, Nick, you want to guess how many movies I've watched so far?
14.
23. You were wrong.
Wow.
Yeah. So, my hobbies shift, but my Andor binge and my Mission Impossible binge have come to an end. So, I'm back on the video games, and you know what? I'll say this: literally minutes before this podcast, started, I actually just got a dub in Warzone.
Oh, nice.
It was with Alexa, Austin, and Brittany. We hopped on for quick 2 matches, and the second match we did in fact get the win. So I'm feeling good. I'm excited to talk about video games, but unfortunately I don't have a lot of new things to talk about. I'm still making my way through the precinct. I'm about 7 or 8 hours into the game now.
Okay.
And it's an interesting place that I find myself in now that I've at the point I'm in right now, because there's 2 big gangs in the city of Averno, and I've gotten both the crime bosses, and I expected that to be the end of the game, but it's still going. So I don't know if they're somehow related, or there's some twist that's happening. Still, we haven't figured out what happened with my character's father in the game, how that works. So there's still some loose threads that I'm curious to see how they turn or how they turn out. But for now, I'm still kind of enjoying the game, but I do feel like there's certain elements that I think could be improved upon. Mainly, I'll say the idea of you spend a lot of time in the game driving around in your car, and you have the entire time, it's a weird decision, but the entire time you have a companion with you named Kelly. I feel like Kelly should be more of an active follower. He doesn't do as much when you're kind of in the open world, kind of doing tasks. Like there'll be times where I'm like, I'm fucking handling these 3 people, dude. Can you just help me mitigate the situation? But he's just, he's contemplating buying a car or something. He's just staring at a fucking car. So there's that. But then also when you're driving, I think it would add a lot to have dialogue, while you're I remember when I first joined the force, anything like that to really kind of build the rapport between these 2 characters. Surprised I just dropped that word casually. But anyway, so Precinct, still haven't made my final decision on that. I'm working towards it, but I'll report back if I have anything major. The second thing is the only other game other than Warzone and the Precinct that I've been playing is obviously Star Wars Battlefront. That's right, or Star Wars Battlefront 2, because Nick talked me into it. He put a blaster to my head and he said, "Sweet, you better play this, and you better play it in one day, one stream." And so that's what I did
For
this
the
past
gore,
Monday.
Shree, for the gore.
And you know what? So here's the thing. I'm very conflicted about this campaign. And I echo many of the same sentiments that you had, Nick, in terms of the checkpoints are fucking atrocious. Like I don't understand. There's one time the checkpoint actually came in my favor where like I died, and then somehow it put me past where where I was.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, I'll take that one. But yeah, most of the time you're like just barely at the checkpoint, and then it's like I gotta go all the way back. And so it really ruins the pace of the game. But I think for me, what so first of all, let me just quickly sum up, just to not reiterate too much of what Nick was saying and kind of keep it concise. So I think that it's a 6 hour campaign. It actually took me 4 hours and 58 minutes and 57 seconds, if you want to be exact. And what I found was that it's a mixed campaign because on one hand you have these two original characters that they're trying to bring into the universe with I forget their names, but Dell is one of them, right?
Yeah,
Dell
Dell and
and
Iden.
Iden, yes. So these two characters are coming in, and what what they do is that they introduce these characters and they try to make you care about the relationship and also like their kind of the antagonist for the story as well as Hask, who is like originally part of the crew, but then he turns into he's still part with the Empire, whereas you turn toward the Rebellion. Which I'm not even against the idea of them turning toward like turning coats or whatever,
Mhm.
but where the game kind of shoots itself in the foot is that like it's so much like fan service of there's a level with Luke, there's a level with fucking Leia, there's a level with Lando, and I'm like those things detract so much from the experience, quite contrary to probably what they were thinking of like, yeah, we should have a level with Lando and forget what the other guy's name is too, the one that looks like the alien from Destroy All Humans, but
Oh, yeah.
but like those take away precious time of the already little time that the game has to set up these characters. So by the time at the end of the game, when you're like, there's like this, like you skip forward a few decades and Dell is going through something. I'm not going to ruin the story in case you care about it, but like you're not invested. So either, make it just a romp through the universe where you're just cutting from one famous event to the other, or make it entirely original with maybe like one kind of character you're sticking with instead of just like hitting on all these little points and
Mhm.
trying to get it all. I think it really loses its pace there. But I will say multiplayer kind of interesting, kind of fun. Not like it took me a bit to get used to the pacing of the multiplayer, but like
Mhm.
I will also say it is very much so like, oh yeah, let's take the Battlefield outline and put a coat of paint on it that's for Star Wars, but it's a really good coat of paint. Like they did a really good job with the paint job, so you can't even be mad at it.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, like, that's my thoughts on Battlefront 2. But I mean, man, that game's fucking taking off. I mean, since we did the last episode, it was like, it was breaking its like Steam concurrent player count constantly, and
Mhm. It's like in the
I didn't
top
even.
selling list for PlayStation and Xbox right now. Like,
Yeah, and it's not taking too long to get into to the matches or whatever. But that being said, look, I hear this huge outcry from people being like, oh, actually, I want Battlefront 3, but the sad reality is that Battlefront 3 will not be coming anytime soon.
mhm.
You have to imagine that Dice and all those people, a number of studios at this point are working on the next Battlefield game, and the pressure is on them to really nail this Battlefield game. And that's coming out within the next 365 days, if everything is correct, because they said it's coming out before GTA 6 comes out. And as of 2 days ago, from when we're recording this, GTA 6 will be out in a year from now, then. So, sometime in the next 12 months, we'll see a new Battlefield game. And so, I don't think that there's any, despite the size of Dice, I don't think we'll see anything kind of Battlefront related from them.
Yeah,
So
no,
which does suck, but
yeah, it's definitely all hands on deck on Battlefield. There's no way that unless it was coming from a different team, it would not be coming anytime in the next like 7 years, probably, like to be safe on
yeah,
that. Last time I had mentioned that I had just done the campaign and hadn't really got into multiplayer. I've since done a good bit of the multiplayer,
yeah.
and yeah, it's the one thing that I never gets old with this game and still holds true now, and I'm sure that you've experienced it now, is you get into one of those maps where you're on a choke point of a hallway or something and you just see hundreds of thousands of blaster fire like going back and forth
Yeah.
on everything. There's explosions going off, you're getting into the moment, you pull out like a laser turret or whatever, and then like Darth Maul just comes out of nowhere and slashes you down with
Yeah,
the lightsaber. Like it still has that very arcadey like fun factor, which I really do appreciate. And I think that's what a lot of people are latching onto right now, because it seems like a lot of the high profile like popular shooter kind of games are kind of burning a lot of players for one reason or another right now. And so people are just going back, and it's just like, yeah, the star cards are kind of meh or whatever, but it's like, it's this is simple, to the point, and it's just fun to kind of hop in and play. So
I will say also, for what do you play when you're playing multiplayer? Is it like was there a mode that you go to?
So I've been playing with a buddy of mine who I also convinced to reinstall it, and we played.
One of us.
Yep, we played a little bit of Supremacy, and then we played a little bit of Galactic Assault, and then we've played the co-op mode against like bots, which is essentially just the multiplayer, but with kind of difficult bots.
So I played some Supremacy, and that it is such an expansive like it takes like I think it was like 40 minutes for me to finish through like one full match of Supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's an investment, but it is really like in those moments where it really feels like there is that battle between the rebellion and the empire, is when I think the game kind of really starts to shine. And again, surprisingly, for being a 8-year-old game at this point, it still looks and sounds pretty nice. So Battlefront 2, I'll keep chipping away at it. I'm not sure if I'll have more to say. Oh, actually, I do have. Sorry, this just in. I do have more to say on it. The last thing I'll say is, so once you finish the campaign, you get like those loot crates, loot boxes, whatever the fuck, and I got 3 of them as soon as I finished the campaign. I opened them. All 3 were bugged. Did not get a single I opened them and it just none of them show up. Like it'll play the animation and then none of them show up. And it's happened that all 3 of those, for some reason I didn't learn the lesson the first time. I wasn't like, oh, maybe you should like not redeem all these right now. But then I played Supremacy and I got 2 more, and then the same thing happened. So it seems that you can't get hooked on the loot boxes if they just simply do not function. So you know what? Can't even be mad at it.
Yeah.
But
there's definitely some weird like hiccups, and like I haven't personally experienced this, but I did see that due to the increased player counts, like the servers are crashing at some points and going down. So, mileage may vary depending on what time you're playing and everything.
I wonder how that feels as a developer though. Like, especially because the game's not just, having a resurgence. It's beating its previous player count records. So, like, I wonder, as a developer, like, God damn it, you guys couldn't do this when we fucking released the game? Like, what are you doing now?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's something to be said about being removed from the launch window buzz, because there's so many games where it's like, it can work for you positively or negatively. Exactly. And it's just like,
there's that infamous Reddit post or Reddit comment of like, about like from the EA support team that just like the most disliked or downvoted Reddit comment of all time or whatever.
But like even now, it's like, because I've been watching a bunch of videos that have been popping up with people playing it and going back to it again. It's like they mention it, but it's like we're also past the point where it's like, oh yeah, they were like on track to fix the game. They were having like good content being added into the game and like turning the ship around. And then that's when the service just kind of got pulled for 2042, I think. So it was just like, like now it's like the game is pretty good for what's here. And it's like if they just kind of stuck with it, it probably would have been, even more than it is now. But I mean, hey, it's having its moment again. So
Thanks to Andor. Now, I'm sure Tony Gilroy is very excited. I'm sure he's very tapped into this.
Finally, there's people
But
to play with on Battlefront 2 again.
but no, that's enough about me, Nick. I know you've been feeling a lot of rage, and you've been hitting the streets to let it out. So how's that been treating you?
Oh, man. I got thoughts on a lot of these, so it's pretty funny.
Okay.
Last week I said that I was starting my journey into Streets of Rage, and I had played the first game for last week's podcast. For this week's podcast, I've played 2, 3, and 4, which is the rest of the series, as far as I'm aware. So, yeah. So, how do I want to start about this? I guess I'll just go in order, and we'll break it down each game. So, sure. Streets of Rage 2, the way that I would describe this, by the way, I should mention, if you're just doing like a single playthrough of these games, you can easily get them done in one sitting. That's how I've been able to play through all of these. Like, the longest,
is it meant to be replayed? Like, is it like, or is it like a
4
like,
specifically?
Okay.
I'll get into it a little bit, but like 4 is the longest like start to finish game, and it takes about like 2 hours to get through start to finish.
Oh, okay.
Like if you're playing with a certain character. So the 1, 2, 3, it's like an hour to an hour and a half to get through the whole like game. So Streets of Rage 2. This is obviously the fan favorite one, and for good reason. Now, it's my favorite of the 3 original ones. I do kind of have to separate 4 because there's like a 20-year time gap between Streets of Rage 3 and 4. But yeah, 2 is kind of the fan favorite. And 2, the way that I would describe it, it's essentially Streets of Rage 1, but better in almost every way. It has... The entire series kind of reuses level themes. Not entirely. There are some new stages, but you'll see like, you usually open up on like, a street brawl kind of level. There's usually a level that takes place on a bridge. There's usually a level at the end that takes place on an elevator before you're going to the last area. So it's like each game kind of has its, shtick with the levels. And then there's like new ones here and there. But 2 is essentially just the first game's levels and like, again, 1 or 2 like new ones, but the pixel art is just like way more stylish. The combat in the game is way snappier. It's faster. The combos are better. There's a new special move system that you can use a special move and it uses part of your health bar, but you get like a unique combo kind of attack that you can do. And yeah, the music is incredible in that one, and it really is distilled down to just like it's Streets of Rage 1 but better. So I played through Streets of Rage 2 3 times. So I did 3 full runs of that. Really enjoyed it each time, and like it's still obviously these games are from the Sega Genesis, so they're very like retro, and like you can get like, an infinite punch if you just time your punch right. Like it'll stun lock the enemies and stuff like that. So you end up having to use that to your advantage at certain points and stuff. There's some annoying kind of things where it's like there's enemies that ride motorcycles and they just like, go across the screen really obnoxiously and stuff. So there's like, it's not like, a flawless game by any means, but for like a retro game, I was going into it with that mindset and, just kind of having fun with it. Like it definitely, I had more fun with 2 than I did with 1, and I already had a pretty fun time with 1. So then we go to Streets of Rage 3. Streets of Rage 3, I only played 1 time. It is my least favorite of all of them. Okay. It improves things, and then it also devolves things from the other 2. So you still have a bunch of different characters that you can use for, the game. You can select your character and all that. The combat takes notes from 2, but I don't know if it was just like the version that I'm playing. So I'm playing the Streets of Rage versions that are included with the Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection on the Xbox 360. So I have no idea how good those ports are, like in the context of things. There's a couple different ways that you can play these classic Streets of Rage games and everything, but that's the version that I'm playing. And the game feels like it runs really fast, and like, whereas in 2 you'd be like, punch, 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 like for a combo. It's like punch, 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 like whenever you're doing things. So
I see.
I don't know if it's like a weird translation thing or if the game just actually does run faster than the other ones, but that was a little bit weird. The art style, I think, is not as strong as the other two. Like, the characters still look really good. They're pretty highly detailed, and they're like big, sprites. They're not, tiny little 8-bit sprites when you're playing. So the art style, I think, is still like decent, but like a lot of the levels are not as memorable to me than some of the other ones. They do introduce more story to this one. So in Streets of Rage 1 and 2, it's kind of like, an opening little text crawl, essentially. And then you just play through a bunch of levels, and then you go fight Mr. X at the end, who's the big bad guy. And in 3, they start to introduce like mini kind of cutscene things. I say cutscenes, it's like a still image with text. There's like this plot where it's like Mr. X has like a robot army that's taking over all the syndicates, and he's like replaced the mayor with a evil robot who's going to like take over the city and stuff. It's very, nonsensical and stuff. I say they added story. It's still like, background, essentially.
Right. It's not the focus.
The one major downgrade, well, there's 2 downgrades, but the one major downgrade is the music for 3. There are times in Streets of Rage 3 where I was like, this music is just grating to me. Like, whereas in Streets of Rage 2, it's like you have like, it still has like a beat and a rhythm to it. There are like levels in Streets of Rage 3 where it's like like something like essentially like that, and it just loops like that constantly. And yeah, I thought that the music in the game was like a significant downgrade from the other 2. The other kind of negative I have is that the gameplay and the enemy designs are pretty like frustrating in 3, which is why I didn't play it more than the one time. It's like just there was a lot more circumstances where enemy combinations and stuff are just kind of placed in a way that's like constantly knocking you on your ass, and you constantly have to keep watching your character get up and stuff. And so I wasn't really too much of a fan of that one. Apparently, like, from what I was seeing in different comment sections and stuff I was looking at, like, Streets of Rage 3 is, like, a more challenging game. So I don't really know what kind of happened with that one, but it definitely seems like kind of the odd one out for the original games. Mm-hmm. And the other one interesting thing I'll say about 3 is that it does introduce alternate endings depending on what you accomplish in the game. So there's, like, a part where you have to go rescue the mayor, and he's strapped to a chair behind like these laser walls, and there's bombs planted in the building, and you have to go to these different areas to defuse the bombs, and then you can go and rescue him from the chair or whatever. That is timed, and so if you can't get to him in time, he will die, and that will set you on a different final level. And if you go and rescue him, then you get set on a different path in the final level, and you fight like a different boss fight and everything. So there is some kind of interesting stuff that I don't even think Streets of Rage 4 really does. But I did think that was kind of cool, that like, they're playing with different ideas. So 3, it has some good parts. It has some bad parts. Ultimately, it wasn't my favorite, though. Sure. Now, all that said, to get to Streets of Rage 4, which is now my favorite of all 4 of them. Yes, this came out way after. So Streets of Rage 3 came out in the 90s, I'm pretty sure. Streets of Rage 4 came out, I believe, in 2020 or 2019, somewhere around then. So, like, relatively recently, how I would describe it. And I have heard for years now that Streets of Rage 4 is, like, incredible. I knew that going into it, that it's just like, okay, like, this kind of revitalized the beat-em-up genre in no small part. And through, just casually on YouTube or at work, I've listened to the soundtrack for Streets of Rage 4 a lot. And I was like, okay, I already know that the music's great in this game. Streets of Rage 4 is pretty much what you would want out of a retro revival, I feel like. It feels very similar to the classic games in how you play it. So, like, if I'm using like a D-pad or whatever to move the character around, you're still doing your combos and everything. You have special moves. You have all the stuff that you were able to do in the past games. But now you also have like, it just feels way better. And I think part of that is A, due to the animation, B, the sound effects, which are like extremely like punchy and, you know, snappy, exactly how you want. Oh, and the controller vibration. Basically, like, you know, the old games don't really have that, but the controller vibration, you feel like every single punch that you're doing, and they have that tuned just right. Like it feels like all of that combines together, and just pummeling people feels incredibly good in this game. I mentioned you have all your different tools, so you have your different combos and everything. You have, you know, grab moves and all that. They start to introduce some more like aerial style of play. So in the past, like you could like toss enemies or whatever, or you could do like a jump kick, and that was about all you could really do. Now, if you get it in the proper spot and like you're using the wall of the level, you can start doing like wall combos and like kind of juggling enemies and stuff. So you can get some really fun kind of tech out of, you know, that element of the game. But also one of the coolest things that they've added to this game, and I think more games need to have something like this. There's even a trophy that pops for it, so they know what they got here is awesome. And in the old games, you could pick up weapons, right? So you could pick up like a knife or like a crowbar. You could use those. You can also throw them, and they would like throw across the screen, you know, hit an enemy, and it would be like kind of like a ranged attack that you would have. What you can do in Streets of Rage 4 is you can throw the weapons and they bounce back, and you can catch them in the air again.
Get them up.
So you can you can literally take like the crowbar, see like a guy coming, toss it, like bounces off him, grab it back, and then turn around and hit somebody else. It feels so awesome when you pull that off, and like you can just like chain it like against guys, like if you get your timing right. It's so cool. There's just so much that I want to say about it. I also don't want to take forever talking about Streets of Rage, so I have to try to limit myself a little bit here. But I've also played through this 3 times so far. I'm going to play through, there's different trophies for beating it with different characters. So there's like 5 main base characters, and then as you're playing, you actually get to unlock retro versions of the characters. So you get to do like, you get to unlock all the Streets of Rage 1 pixel art variants, all the Streets of Rage 2, and the Streets of Rage 3 variants. So there's an achievement for each of the base ones, and then there's achievements for beating it with a Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3 character. So I'm at least going to do all of those, I think, because I'm having so much fun playing the game right now. And like I mentioned before, it's a bit longer. It's about 2 hours to get through this one. There's 12 stages in this, whereas the other games have like 7 to 8. So you get a little bit more level out of that. And the levels are a little bit longer than the classic ones, as you would kind of expect. Like most of the levels start you in an area, you go to like 1 or 2 side areas, and then there's a boss fight at the end. Then the other big thing that's changed is the art style. So the classic ones obviously are pixel art. This is a hand-drawn style, but it looks incredible and it's animated super well. So like each of the backgrounds are full of detail, and it's really cool because they have these like a gallery that you can look at where they have like concept art and everything. And there's just like so much like layers and different detail to just like simple shots. Like there's this one boss arena that you fight in that's like a motorcycle shop kind of yard essentially, and so you have the foreground stuff which has like, you know, the motorcycles and the fenced in kind of area. There's like the street behind it, there's buildings behind that, and then you have like a bridge like over like connecting to the city and everything, and then you have like little animated elements like planes going off and stuff. So there's just so much like detail in the environments, and there's things like, you know, breakable objects. Some levels have like holes that you can fall into, but you can also like, you know, throw enemies into, that sort of thing. There was one level that I thought was kind of funny where they have wet floor signs everywhere. And at first I didn't really pick up on it, but I was like, why am I like sliding around? And I was like, oh, it's because they mop the floors. And so it's like, they have like fun little gimmicks in the level design that kind of contextualize things, which I think is really, you know, it's really fun. And yeah, just I'm having so much fun with it. I have very little that I think is really wrong with it. Some of the enemies have been like redesigned, which is not it's neither here nor there. Like, I think the designs are
Sure.
perfectly fine, and they've also added some new enemies. I really like specifically in this new one, you can go up against different like police officers essentially, because essentially it's like the villains have like infiltrated and they, you know, they control everything, right? And all of the enemies in Streets of Rage have a name to denote like what type of enemy they are, and all of the police officer names I believe are all references, because there's Officer Dick, which would be for Tony Hawk, there's Officer Murphy, which would be RoboCop, and then there's one other one that I'm blanking on right now, but I think it's also a reference to another video game or something like that. So just cool enemies, a great length, highly replayable, great music, great visuals, great animation. The hype is real, essentially, is what I'm trying to say with all this. Like, it's an awesome game and definitely worth a playthrough. Even, like, if you're not even going to play the originals, I would say just go with 4. You'll be perfectly fine starting there if you just want to have some fun and beat up some thugs.
Is there like any sort of narrative thread to follow between these, or is
this
it just
one?
Well, I mean, between the titles, yeah.
The minorest of minor threads. Like, yes, there's characters that carry over that you play as, and like, you know, there's a moment in this game where it's like, oh, this character from Streets of Rage 1 comes to save us and stuff like that. So there's stuff like that. The main villains in this one are like the kids of Mr. X, and they're called the Y twins. So again, it's just like, it's very like kind of surface level kind of connections. It does have a story though. I'm glad that you asked that. Like, this one does have like more graphic novel like cutscenes and stuff for each level, but again, it's like, it's not like, you know, Oscar worthy material or anything, right? Sure. It's, you know, we're a couple of grizzled ex-cops that gotta save the city. That's pretty much it. Like,
that's fair. So, would you say, a ranking of all the Streets of Rage games? I'm gonna guess 4, 1, 3, 2. Is that, or what do you think? Where does it fall off?
4, 2, 1, 3 from best to worst.
2, 1, 3. Okay. Oh, sorry. 3 is the worst.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, I got them mixed up.
Yeah, 3 definitely, like, I would say it was like the most like kind of mid of the 4 of them. 1 is a good proof of concept that 2 expands upon in every way, and then 4 I think is just the whole thing but better. So
that's fair. Well, there you go. I think Streets of Rage is actually on Game Pass. Oh, sorry, 4 is actually on Game Pass as well, for those of you who, you know, have interest in checking it out. Streets of Rage 4 specifically caught my eye, but I think at the time, because I was like, you know, I was in a similar mood of like, oh, I want to play some sort of like an old school arcadey beat 'em up, and then I ended up playing the new Teenage Mutant Ninja game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, and which is fun, but it was a much longer campaign that I didn't end up seeing through to the end. But that was, of course, like
gotcha
2 years ago at this point. So
yeah,
you know, maybe next time the itch comes across.
Yeah, the games are like great. Like I said, though, I've really enjoyed like going through this series now, and it's so great that like the last one you play is like ends up being the best one, right? Because it's just like that makes it feel so
usually
much better.
It goes downhill, or like maybe it peaks somewhere in between, but yeah, it's rarely the last entry really kind of nails it home. Is there a 5th one in development, or is it like done?
Kind of. Essentially, do you remember a couple years ago at the Game Awards, Sega announced like remakes of a ton of games that they used to make?
Yeah, including Crazy Taxi and all that stuff.
In that trailer, there is a Streets of Rage game, and it's like a 3D brawler. So it's like, it's not the same kind of 2D beat 'em up. Okay. So they're definitely experimenting.
It's like Street Fighter-esque Streets of Rage. Like they take that formula with like the new graphics.
Maybe like it's really hard to say. Streets of Rage, I feel like, is probably one of the earlier ones, because there's like 2 shots in the entire trailer that they have for that one.
Oh, sure.
So
yeah,
I'm not really sure. But the one last thing that I have to say about 4 is that there is also Mr. X Nightmare, which is a DLC that they put out. and that adds more playable characters and like a pseudo roguelike survival mode. I don't have access to that. I'm playing, I guess it's just the base version that was included with PS Plus sometime, because I looked in my library and I was like, oh, I have Streets of Rage 4. So I don't have Mr. X Nightmare, but I'm considering hopping in because I've also heard that that's very fun as well.
Well, I was just going to say that, that conversation we might have to continue later on in this episode regarding Summer Game Fest, because Sega will be there. So who knows? Maybe we'll see a little, if not Streets of Rage, Crazy Taxi or something will come up there. And I will also say that as we come, were you playing anything else before?
Nah, it's just been Streets of Rage and Battlefront for me.
That's fair. That's fair. I will say that before we move on to the news, that next week you got to come back because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure about Nick, but I will be playing a little roguelike, a little indie roguelike called Elden Ring Night Rain. I got my copy ready. It's waiting for me. Yeah, I'm excited to hop in this Friday and see how it goes. I know the previews went up earlier today, but I've been pretty much staying away from most of them. Like, kind of, I mean, look, it's not going to be much of a surprise, considering it's a roguelike that takes place across 3 days. But I'm looking forward to it. Nick, are you jumping in, or?
I think I am going to. I had mentioned to you in the past that my local Best Buy sometimes is a little bit loose with the street dates for certain games, and I went over there the other day. I was like, maybe they got Night Rain out. They did not this time, sadly. So I was not able to grab one early right now.
Dude, every time I go to my local GameStop, I don't know how I manage it, but it's like every time I go, they're on their 15-minute break. Like, it's like I see a sign, it's like, oh, sorry, we'll be back in 15 minutes. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, every time I go. But
crazy.
Yeah, it's also, by the way, while I'm on the topic of GameStop, last 2 times I went to GameStop, the first time it was to literally buy a PlayStation 5 Pro, and they talked me down. They were like, nah, you don't really want a PlayStation 5 Pro. And then the second time I wanted to play, I was actually looking for a physical copy of Battlefront 2. I don't know what was going through this guy's head. I don't know if he was having a bad day, but like I asked him, like, hey, do you have Battlefront 2 for the PlayStation 4? This, Nick, actually, you ask me, I'll be the guy.
Hey, I've been wanting to play Battlefront 2. Do you have any copies?
Oh yeah. Yeah, sorry, I don't think we have that. But if you see it out there, it's probably we have it. But yeah, I don't think we have it. That was it. He just turned around and turned back. Like, did he think I wouldn't see the fact that he didn't check like for the game? Like, he didn't even look up on the system or like look in the shelves. He just turned around. I was like, okay, I'm still here, and then turned back around and said, nope. I was so confused. But anyway, I digress. Nick, let's talk about some of this news, because there's a bit of a smattering of news here we have.
Yeah.
God damn, it's like a flashbang. Oh, by the way, you know what? I meant to say this earlier before I close out. You were talking about Streets of Rage release dates. Streets of Rage 1, 1991. Streets of Rage 2?
92?
You were right. Streets of Rage. Oh, wait, there's a game called Beats of Rage? I don't know what that is.
I've not heard of that.
It's a fan-made tribute game. That doesn't count. What the fuck? Streets of Rage 3, Nick.
I'm gonna guess 94.
God damn, you're nailing it. And all right, well, Streets of Rage 4.
I'm gonna say 2020. I think it's 2020.
You are right, 2020. And you know what? Just to fucking throw a ringer in there. Streets of Rage Remake.
That's also a fan-made one. I have heard of that one.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. It is a fan game developed by the team. Yep, never mind. Yep. Fuck. Why is this showing up, man? What the hell? Anyway, there you go.
I've heard it's a very good remake, a very good fan remake. That's why people are like, yeah, you should play it. Like, it's pretty good. So, yeah.
All right. So, regarding the news, we got an interesting collection here. And I think, what do you want to tackle this one? Because this is a bit of an this one big one I can cover, but
cool. You mentioned Night Ring, so let's get it out of the way first here. Elden Ring, Is it the next on the
Yes.
live action, I assume, you know,
Right, right.
spigot, right? So it's there's a movie that's been officially announced, coming from A24 and written and directed by Alex Garland.
Yeah. This is so interesting to me because what's your take on this? Well, first of all, the fact that they're making an Elden Ring movie, and second of all, that it's Alex Garland in A24 attached.
Conflicted, if I had to sum it up in one word. Obviously, A24, they put out a lot of good movies, but they also put out a lot of very specific types of movies, I feel like.
Very divisive movies. let's say.
You know, when they announced that A24 was doing Death Stranding, I'm like, that's perfect. That feels exactly
Sure.
in line, you know.
Which I think, yeah, I mean, he just kind of reconfirmed that, right? I think
Mhm.
Kojima was just like, yeah, that's happening.
Yeah, I think he's working on, I don't think Kojima is like behind the camera directing it, but like,
Right.
you know, he is attached in some way, obviously. But like Elden Ring, like I get From Software kind of has that like auteur driven, like kind of, you know, oblique kind of storytelling kind of model. And so like on one end I can kind of see that for like an A24 kind of working well. At the other end, it's like Elden Ring was a massive fantasy giant experience, and it's like I don't really, A24 does not come to my head when I think of those words, right? When it comes to movies.
Yeah.
So it's like that's something that's a bit weird for me. Alex Garland, like I've enjoyed most of the movies that I've seen that he's made. I've seen like Ex Machina and Annihilation. Those are the two main ones. And
I was
so
gonna say, I don't know if I dragged you to see it, but I dragged a lot of people in college to see Annihilation. I was just like, I watched it once. I was like, you guys got to get in here. I just started like taking people.
mhm.
But yeah, yeah,
So like he's definitely a director that I think can make a good movie for certain. It's just like I have a very like hard time thinking how you adapt a From Software video game to a movie with like it working, right? Like, and obviously I that sounds like such a like a basic thing to kind of say, I feel, but it's like on the one hand you have the storytelling that's very kind of like heavy lore
or
and like,
yeah,
you know, very unclear, I'd say, like when it's just like put out in front of you like a movie would. And so it's like visually I can see it like they'll probably be able to get the look down, I'm guessing, like, you know, it's dark fantasy and, you know, there's a lot of very interesting enemy designs, and the aesthetic is very well established, I guess is how I'll phrase that. And so they have a lot to draw from when adapting it in that way. But like if you're being faithful to the game, there's a lot of people that probably aren't going to understand the freaking story whenever it, you know, is playing out in front of them. There's rarely
yeah,
ever like defined characters. Like there are characters obviously, and they have a lot of, you know, character and a lot of individuality, but like you're rarely following a character throughout a game that isn't like your own character, outside of like Sekiro where you're playing as like
sure,
a specific character, right?
yeah,
So those are two, I think, really hard roadblocks that are going to take a lot of work to try to get across properly in a way that like fans are going to be like, no, it's just like some weird Lord of the Rings knockoff. Like if that's the way that it, you know, if they don't succeed in pulling that off.
yeah. Yeah, I love Alex Garland. I won't say that I've loved everything he's done. I don't think Men specifically hit the right notes with me. Um, but I do think that like Civil War was one of my favorite movies last year. I did watch Warfare earlier this year in theaters as well. But what I think is interesting is what in his specific portfolio lends him as like, oh yeah, the obvious choice to make a fantasy. Like if it was like a like if it was like Prey or something, right? Like I'm just pulling that out of my ass. There's no real kind of there's no Prey movie in development.
Hmm.
But if it was like a science fiction IP like Prey, I would be like, oh yeah, Alex Garland could totally own that because he's worked on multiple weird, trippy sci-fi stories. Again, you named Annihilation, Ex Machina, as kind of examples for it. But uh, my only thought is either one, he's a really big fan of the game, or two, A24. As far as I understand, I believe that that Civil War was the biggest A24 movie. Like, that was the biggest budgeted A24 movie. So
Hmm.
I imagine if they wanted to spend a lot of money on this Elden Ring movie, that it would be he would be the choice. Like, he's dealt with this money before. But
Sure.
at the same time, yeah, I'm curious about how Elden Ring is tackled. I obviously have not played. I'm not an avid FromSoft gamer
Which is
like
funny
you,
that
Nick.
you're hopping into Night Rain. I love that perspective. Like,
Right. Yeah, it'll be an interesting clash of how it happens.
Night Rain player reacts to Elden Ring.
Yeah, and so like, I don't know. I'd be curious about how they tackle this, and obviously, A24 is known for that weird shit, but also like the more like intimate stuff, where it's like, it's more about the characters, and it's so interesting applying that to a game that has it's not about the characters, it's about this is its world, and it's kind of, I don't know. I would also kind of, the last thing I'll say about it is like, I wonder if there's some treatment that was made already,
Mm,
regarding like a feature adaptation of it. Uh, Not only because it's a big IP and that they want to kind of expand it, but also like George R. R. Martin's attached to it. So I don't know
mhm.
if that had anything to do with it, but
You know
I
they're
don't
gonna
know.
put that in the trailer, like, based
Oh,
on material or
right,
lore from George R. R. Martin. Like, I
yeah,
it calls into question like when it is set also, because there is stuff in Elden
sure,
Ring that's like, obviously, I mean, a lot of FromSoft games, it's like pseudo post-apocalyptic, where it's just like a lot of important stuff happened before the game started, and now you're kind of
right, to
plopped
get
into
you
the
where you
world.
are, right.
Exactly. So it's like, would a movie be like exploring stuff you see in
He has made
cutscenes,
he
like it?
he has made post-apocalyptic stuff. I mean, he wrote 28 Days Later, and so maybe this is another thing, kind of going off of like why Alex Garland. Look, I really trust him as a director, but like, recently I've had this experience where I went to see Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and after walking out of that movie, um, I believe, is it Wes Ball or Wes Bell? Wes Ball, I think, is the name.
Ball, I
But
think.
um, he was announced that he was going to be directing the upcoming Legend of Zelda movie, animated, I think, is what it is.
No,
But
I
like,
think
I
it's
walked
live
out of,
action.
well, okay, live action, but I think isn't it like with like
It's
heavy animation?
I mean, I think
I'm
it's
not
going to be
sure.
like Planet of the Apes, where it's like they're definitely going to
Right.
use like CG for a lot of characters and stuff like that.
And I walked out of that movie being like, yeah, I could totally see where that, like, I could see the influence, I could see the choice,
Hmm.
and that made sense to me. But here I am a little bit more of like, where did this come from? Like, like, who pitched this idea to who, and like,
It's
how did
also
that,
like, is Miyazaki going to be involved? Like, it's a whole can of
yeah,
worms.
right now he's too busy working on Dustblood, as we know, the Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive. But speaking of adaptations, we'll kind of quickly touch on this. Kojima recently, is doing the press now for Death Stranding 2. He's getting started. And so part of the thing that he said was like he's going through the phases of Kojima Productions, and like, I think phase, I forget, like phase one is currently what they're working on, but then like phase two, I think he said, was like, well, phase one I think was like expanding existing projects into further kind of like, movies or whatever. But
Hmm.
then phase two, I believe, was the interesting one because he said he wants to make a game that bridges a gap between movies and video games. So interesting to see what the step by step process that Kojima has. Maybe it's all in that flash drive that he was hinting at. Um, But either way, along with the movie that Nick kind of talked about earlier, we also have the anime adaptation that is confirmed to be in development for Death Stranding, which I think would be pretty sick and pretty straightforward. Honestly, like it makes sense.
Yeah.
Of like there is heavy anime influence and inspirations in Death Stranding that you can really like take and run with. So
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I'm not expecting it. It would be certainly cool if they could get like Yoji Shinkawa's kind of art style, who he's been like, Kojima's art guy for like
Yeah,
everything that he's
yeah,
made. And so it's like it'd be cool if that they could translate that style into like kind of blend it with like an anime kind of aesthetic. I don't think that's how it's going to be though, unfortunately.
yeah,
But
yeah. You're
one
gonna
can
get trigger
dream.
on this one.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I would expect like a Edge Runners kind of style to it at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
And I really hope that like especially when it comes to Death Stranding, that it's not just an adaptation of the story. I feel like it needs to be like Edge Runners, where it is like a different story, different character, um, a different kind of perspective on it. I did see that there's he had an interview where he was like, "Yeah, we scanned so many people into the game that like we literally could not put more people. We ran out of space." So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Pokemon made its way into Death Stranding 2.
Well, who's your pick
Uh,
for your wildest person to pop up in a
dude,
hologram?
Rajamoli, man, Rajamoli. If Rajamoli, for those of you who don't know, Rajamoli is the director of RRR, which was a huge movie a few years ago. I think won an Oscar for best song or something, best original song. But as someone who like that is like that is my mother tongue. Like that, like he speaks like I've been watching that guy since I was like 7 years old. Like for him to be for me to grow up, in kind of a foot in both worlds. For if he shows up in that game. It would be like the craziest collision of worlds for me. I don't think I'd be prepared. What about you?
Man, I don't even know. Like the craziest option I feel like would be just like somebody that like doesn't exist anymore, like some actor that died like 2 decades ago. I don't think Kojima would do that, but like, that would
Yeah.
be crazy. I honestly I'm pretty sure it's confirmed at this point that Conan O'Brien is going to be in it again, and like I'll be
Yeah,
stoked as hell for
yeah,
that. So I honestly
yep,
I
yep,
would like to see more game developer acknowledgement, because in the first one, like Herman Hulst and Sam Lake appear, and so it's like it'd be
yeah,
cool to see
yeah.
if like we
And
can
Sam
get some
Lake, I
other
think, is in
people.
this one too, right? Like, I believe he's in, like, at least from what if you. By the way, Kojima has Nick. Do you know how many Instagram posts Kojima has?
uh,
You want to take a guess? How many posts?
it's a couple thousand at least. I'm pretty sure. I know he posts a lot.
14.2 thousand
I was gonna say
fucking
like eight
Instagram posts.
thousand, so it was gonna be well
Yeah,
below
no, no.
that.
It is crazy. And so like one of them I did see that Sam Lake was kind of rescanned in his
Oh,
current
cool.
form. So yeah, I feel like he's going to be in it, but
Hmm.
I don't know who else would be a wild card other than for me, like obviously Rajamoli, like I said. Um but yeah, so anime is in the works, movies in the works, a lot more coming from Kojima soon, so keep an eye out for that. Now, Nick, I know we'll touch on this briefly. So I don't think this is a huge kind of news, but Cyberpunk 2077, obviously a game that both Nick and I really like. They've I don't want to say they've started the drip of news for it, but the tap has certainly not been sealed shut. So we've gotten the fact that, first of all, that they've entered pre-production. So congratulations to that team. I believe it's a new team working in Boston, out of Boston, that's making Cyberpunk the sequel. I don't know if it's Cyberpunk 2 2078 or
Hmm.
2077, like whatever. This also comes off the news that I think like The Witcher sold like, first of all, like 60 million total, the entire series.
Wow.
But then Phantom Liberty sold specifically 10 million. I believe again, these are all numbers I'm pulling up. The 10 million is for sure, it is on our docket. Uh, the numbers I'm pulling off the top of my head, I believe last they said Cyberpunk sold like 30 million total. Um, So it's a pretty good, attach rate for how many people ended up picking up Phantom Liberty. And that's not
Hmm.
even taking into account that, just in a few weeks we got the Switch 2 coming out with obviously
It's
a
another
whole new
version of
release of
that. Yeah.
Cyberpunk. Um, but that being said, there's also the news that the sequel will not be in Night City. It'll be in some sort of a Chicago gone wrong type of version, which that's just Chicago, baby. I hate to break it to you. So we'll see that. What do you say? Like 2020? I'm gonna say 2028. Probably. We'll see. We'll see the next Cyberpunk game.
I honestly don't think that that's that far off. I think like Witcher
Yeah.
4 is probably the next game we'll see, but
Right.
if they're already starting pre-production now and they already have like I would imagine there's going to be some reused assets from 2077 just for how that game
Sure.
looks, and also like, cars and
Well,
stuff like that. Like
yeah,
I'm sure
yes,
that
but aren't they now shifting to Unreal? Like, are they're like
true.
Witcher's working on Unreal 5, I think. So I think that they're now shifting entirely to a new engine. Because I was gonna say like they're it's the same engine, but no,
Mhm.
it's yeah they got new. They got to build it up again
Maybe a
a little
bit
bit from
longer than 2028. That's like 3 years out. So like I maybe 30, depending on how balls to the wall they go
yeah
with it.
yeah that's fair.
Cyberpunk
Uh,
2030 coming out in 2030. They're not gonna do that.
yep yep
It's
yep.
prequel. Yeah, no. Exciting though, honestly. Like I think they learned some valuable lessons with the launch of that game, and I would be highly shocked if they repeat the history with Cyberpunk 2077 with a sequel. So,
Yeah. All right. What's next for you, Nick?
we can get this one out of the way real quick. There was a Pokemon Presents that was announced for when was it?
July.
July 22nd, and
Yeah.
also Pokemon Legends ZA, the newest game, is going to be coming out on October 16th. Um, so you're kind of into Pokemon, right?
Yeah, yeah. I am. I think at this point I think perhaps my wife is a little bit more. She spent $50 on a fucking Pokemon card last weekend. So hopefully that thing's worth it. I don't know if it's being graded or not, but no, I do like Pokemon, and they did also, along with the news that that this new game's coming to Switch too. Obviously,
Hmm.
they revealed the cover art, and it's the one of the first time, one of the few times. I'm trying to think, one of the few times where the cover art does not have a legendary Pokemon on it. It's just kind of like a little like still of the game.
Hmm.
Um, which is interesting. Like Eevee, Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, Let's Go Pikachu didn't have one, but like by and large, it's usually like the legendary Pokemon is the cover of the game. So, um, look,
Yeah,
I don't know. I have no real interest in Legends ZA. I just something about it. I just feel like it does not does not draw me in. But who knows? Maybe this
that's kind
July
of the
22nd
vibe that I've
broadcast.
gotten from a lot of people, like just like, osmosis on the internet and everything. Like Legends Arceus had a lot of fans, but I don't see people being like, "Oh my god, Legends GA." It's usually just
Yeah.
people like, "Oh, there's, putting out Pokemon again." So,
I, I I think that it is, I don't know. Maybe there's a whole episode that we can kind of prepare for regarding just how this series has not tried. Like I understand that like they've innovated with the idea that like you can move around and you can throw your Pokeballs in real time. There's not like this animation. You don't have to do it in combat and like there's all these things, but like there Pokemon consistently feels like the series that just does not care about its gamer like its audience in terms of like actively, but at the same time I can't fully say that because it's like its audience base is absolutely, for lack of a better word, brain dead. Like they do not care about it. Like they don't have the self-respect to be like, no, I need more than this from a game that I'm going to spend 60 or $70 on.
mhm.
So you can't even fucking blame them for saying, why go for good when we can go for bare minimum and still break records? Like what?
Right. Yeah, I think the funny thing about the actual Pokemon Presents broadcasts also are like it's usually like there's like one game that's interesting in there and then a ton of other stuff that's just like, oh, you
Yeah,
wanted
like
this Netflix anime, we got you. You wanted these 5 mobile games that, I guess
Well, and then
people
like
play,
the MOBA, like a new Pokemon's being added to the MOBA, and also a new pack is coming every other week for the mobile game.
and if you scan this QR code at the end of the trailer, you get 5 mega extra balls to use. And it's just like, okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also, it's a little bit weird. Look, I know that Nintendo's not directly making each of the Pokemon games, but where I think Nintendo's like has this record. And Nick, you're the bigger Nintendo guy, so correct me if I'm wrong, but like usually Nintendo is like, hey, like 2 days from now we'll have a Nintendo Direct coming out. Or like, hey, next week Nintendo Direct, and they're like 2 months from now, get ready for a Pokemon Presents. like
Pokemon definitely announces earlier than like traditional Nintendo Directs for sure. Yeah, the recency compared to, because we just had another Pokemon Presents like a couple months ago, I feel like back in like February or March. So it's like, what are they going to show? Unless it's just more ZA, like because it's coming out in October. It's like, okay, here's like the Switch 2 enhancements, more in depth, like what you're getting like that. I guess I could see that happening, or if maybe they have another project that's in the works, because this is like the longest gap between games, hasn't it been, from Violet and Scarlet to ZA? Which is like a year and a half, which is not saying much, but it's like...
Yeah, I guess so, because they also like didn't have any, I guess, mid kind of like in between releases to kind of appease fans.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're right there. But anyway, that's enough about Pokemon Presents. We'll talk about that obviously. Let's see, in episode probably 18, no, 20, probably episode 20, we'll talk about Pokemon Presents. So
we'll talk about that one game that will be shown in there that'll be worth talking about.
so subscribe and leave a like for that. Next one, I'll go for some things that actually I care so much about, because they're not as loose with their they're very close to the vest about the IP. Okay, we are of course going to talk about Warhammer Skulls. This is the recent showcase that happened where they announced a bunch of stuff, and I have the press release right here with all the juicy details. This is an event that was hosted by Rahul Kohli. Shout out Rahul. He was in Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, absolutely incredible show, as well as the upcoming Housemarque game, right? Housemarque
Saros, yeah.
From Saros, yeah. So here's what we have. I'm going to try my best to sift through all this to get you all the juicy stuff. So first of all, we have a sequel to Warhammer 40k bolt gun, as well as a Owlcats who previously made Rogue Trader. So it's a CRPG coming out called Warhammer 40k Dark Heresy. You know what? Let me just go through here. So first of all, Bolt Gun has a sequel that's in the works, but then they also announced a surprise launch of Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun Words of Vengeance. That's right, Words of Vengeance. It's a free type to kill game that's available now on Steam, where you literally type to kill. It seems to be only available on Steam or PC.
Yeah, it's like a Typing of the Dead style, where like you'll be moving forward, typing in words, and then it blasting, heretics and shit.
Yeah. And then the players will also be able to experience the full 1.0 PC launch of Warhammer 40k Speed Freaks, which is a vehicular combat game, again set in the Warhammer universe. The sequel to Rust is coming out, like I said, but Jesus Christ. The sequel to Rogue Trader is coming out, but also Rogue Trader has a new DLC called Lex Imperialis, which will introduce the fearsome arbitrators. Fuck.
I gotta say real quick, I gotta cut in, Sri. If this is the type of language that we have to type in the Typing of Vengeance or whatever, like it is going to be a hard mode, like severe.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's gonna be it's gonna suck. The Games Workshop also, along with licensed partners, revealed upcoming collaboration with Rust. Don't know what that means. So we'll see what that entails. They also announced that Warhammer 40K Mechanicus 2. They have had a big reveal featuring the Leagues of Votan. Fucking goddamn, these words are just getting out of hand here. They also had. Oh, here we go. This is going to be easy. Warhammer 3 or Total War Warhammer 3, and the next DLC was revealed called Tides of Torment. There's the Talisman Digital 5th Edition. There's Warhammer 40K Battle Sector. A new major free update was revealed, which will include a Crusade game mode, Dominions, Orcs Boys with Choppa, alongside a new paid Deeds of Fallen DLC. I'm glad I almost made Nick do a spit take with that one. Uh, there's Vermintide 2, which will be available on Game Pass as part of Skulls. There's Blood Bowl 3, which is like the football NFL version of the game. There's Tacticus, the mobile game, that has a new faction called the Adeptus Custodes. There's 40K Warp Forge. Say that 5 times fast, Nick. Do that. Warp Forge. Say that 5 times fast.
Warp Forge, Warp Forge, Warp Forge, Warp Forge, Warp Forge.
Damn, he fucking nailed it. The Emperor's Children will be available as a new faction from Skulls. There's 40K Gladius, a new unit's DLC is released. Onslaught pack is available now. There's obviously Supremacy Warhammer 40K. It's a pre-registration opens for a brand new strategy grand mobile game launching later this year. There's Counter-Strike 2. There's new Warhammer 40K in-game stickers based on the tabletop decals. And on top of that, they announced that Space Marine 2, Jesus Christ, the game that we all really liked, is getting a new siege mode as well. So Skulls was obviously, it's one of those things where, like, if you're a fan of any other thing that's not Warhammer, you're kind of looking in through the window being like, God damn it, how are they doing that? Like, there's so much shit. But if you like Warhammer, there's probably something in there that suits your fancy. So now you know. Hopefully, we covered everything, I think.
Yeah, definitely interested in the bolt gun games. I want to give that typing one a try. I think that's a fun little concept. And then obviously you and I both played played the first one,
Space Marine,
and
yeah,
and really enjoyed that. So
I'm curious if the second one will also be tied into the Space Marine games, because there is a rather big tie-in with which I didn't know the first time I played bolt gun, because I hadn't played Space Marine at the time. So going back and being like, oh shit, like this is really like, it's almost like a direct sequel to, or a spin-off sequel to Space Marine.
Timestamp this. What's going to happen is Bolt Gun 2 is going to tie in to Space Marine 3, and Space Marine 3 will have Rahul's character and Titus interact in some way.
That would be pretty sick. Let's see. Oh, okay. There's also, while we're here, I'll quickly shout out that World War Z. All right. So, because we're talking about Space Marine 2, obviously from Saber Interactive, their previous game before Space Marine 2 was World War Z, and I have to really commend them, because the amount of support that they've shown to World War Z is absolutely ridiculous. Like, it's a game that they've consistently, like, hey, here's a new update, here's new characters, here's a new class, and there's an enhanced edition or whatever. Earlier today, they have announced, actually as of 8 hours ago, they announced that the Swarm is back for more. So Saber Interactive revealed World War Z. Nick, guess what the next 2 letters are?
A, B. V. U.
VR.
VR.
It's a totally new first-person single-player experience based on the blockbuster Paramount Pictures film. This is coming out on MetaQuest and Steam for $20, and it is in August, I believe. August 12th. And it's faithfully reimagines the intense action of the original game to create the most immersive VR zombie experience ever. And I have to say, like, I really did like the base game, World War Z, and I actually still occasionally go back just to play some of the multiplayer. It actually is really fun. So I am curious if the multi, like, if this takes that experience and just applies it to VR, and if done well, I think it could really be an intense, intense experience. I've always felt, I felt like I look like Brad Pitt, and now I can feel like Brad Pitt as well. So, looking forward to that one. Take on hordes of up to 200 zombies on a screen at a time. I'll see how that runs on my MetaQuest 3S.
Yeah.
Uh,
You saying VR there and me not getting that in my head, it was like one of those old cuckoo clocks where it's just like, meh.
I was like, oh, V, he got it.
You.
V, you. Yeah, yeah. All right, what's next, Nick?
This is I think the last thing that we have for news really, and that's actually two things.
Well, yeah, there's a quick one if you want to hit that one too.
Which one's the quick one? Is that the Apple one?
Interesting. I guess both of them could be quick ones depending on how we tackle them. I was just gonna say the Black Panther game, unfortunately, got canceled from EA. This was also comes on the back of they've closed Cliffhanger Games, who are the developers of the Black Panther game. This seems to be in just an interesting phase of like, I don't know if I'm reading the tea leaves incorrectly or if the tea leaves just don't exist. This is like coffee, and I'm trying to read the tea leaves. But I feel like the Marvel is going through a whole like reckoning. This is the final reckoning of Marvel. I just had to throw that in there. Go watch Mission Impossible. But if obviously, like the new one came out, the new Avengers, and it came out and it was a really cool concept. I appreciate what they did, but it just did not do well. I think it's currently the second lowest grossing Marvel movie, right behind the Marvels, which is unfortunate. But I think there's a lot of like recovering of like, oh man, like we had all these ideas for when like MCU was like the hottest shit, and now we got to rethink things. So obviously we had the news, probably I think 2 or 3 episodes ago, where we talked about how that Captain America, Black Panther game was kind of delayed, and now this game's canned as well. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if they. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I wonder if it is a signpost of like, we're starting to get away from the superhero stuff, like by and large, because like Wonder Woman was also canceled from Monolith.
Yeah,
there's like an Iron Man game that I was reminded of that's in development, like, but we've not seen like anything of that, and it's like I'd be surprised if that still comes out with how all this is going. Like, yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's just all superhero stuff, because I think that again, maybe we're too tapped into the industry that we have a slightly skewed perspective on it. But a few months ago, maybe a few years ago, because time is just a human construct, that there was this demo that someone made, like a fan made demo of like Superman video game that went super viral because people were like, I would want to play this Superman game. So I don't necessarily think it's like entirely superhero fatigue, though I definitely think that is playing into it. But yeah, like, there's been a lot of cancellations in this field, and it also comes off of EA kind of saying that they don't want to focus on franchises as much. Essentially, they've said, well, according to IGN's Rebecca Valentine, EA Entertainment president Laura Miele said that the company is going to be focusing more on a, quote, small handful of franchises. So obviously this means that, Battlefield's going to be there, The Sims, Skate. So those are like confirmed, but like what else we see from that, we'll have to wait. But obviously they're not going to be investing seemingly in these kind of big new franchises. Even if Black Panther is an established IP, still a new video game franchise.
It's also, it's interesting coming from EA too, because they've also been burned by a lot of these franchises. I mean, we talked about, Star Wars earlier, but also they, got out of the room with FIFA and all that. And it's just like, I think they're done. They want to own what they're making, I feel like, versus licensing out stuff anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree. So we'll see how that story develops. But the other one, which I think I don't think I might have a lot to say about it, but is is Apple is planning to launch a dedicated gaming app near the launch of Switch 2. Now, Nick, what's your take? Because I'll say my piece as a more of a Apple fanatic.
Yeah, I am not an Apple user. Like I used to have an iPhone, but I don't have Apple does not infiltrate my life very much at all.
Yeah.
So I'm very like limited in my exposure and like my my use case with Apple products and everything. I will say this seems like repeating history because I feel like Apple constantly says that they want to get into gaming and then they do stuff that's just like, okay, why are you doing that? And then nobody interacts with their gaming stuff, right? So it's like I think their biggest success honestly has been Apple Arcade, but even then it's like there's a lot of games that'll come out on Apple Arcade and people are like, okay, see you in 2 years when it's not on Apple Arcade anymore. And so
Right. Yep.
it's like I don't know, it's like I have definitely seen over the years like some more there's something moving here, like with their like more defined entrance into gaming, and like we see like Resident Evil is getting like Mac ports and stuff like that. So like there is stuff out there. It just kind of comes across to me, especially if it's going to be like an app on here. It's like, okay, so is this going to be like what? Like I feel like I saw in the article that it was talking about like like it'll have like achievement support and stuff like that. So it's like, is this just going to be like the
already better than Nintendo?
True. Let's not go too crazy here, but like, yeah, like I don't know. Are they just making something to house games on Apple again? Like, is Apple actually gonna like fund games? And if they are funding games, is it going to be AAA? Is it going to be more like a Netflix investment where it's like indie stuff that
I
they're
believe
funding?
they just bought their first studio, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think I saw that from
their first.
Jeff Keighley tweeted that, I think. Yeah, so he said Apple acquired its first ever game development studio, the two-person Rack 7 Games, based in Vancouver, Canada, shipped the game Sneaky Sasquatch in 2019. So, two-person team, that would obviously be indie then at that point. So it's like, yeah my perspective on it is, it's like, okay, that's my reaction. It's like Apple's getting into gaming more. Like I already went through this with Stadia and Google. It's like, put something out like that people are going to care about and then you'll get my attention. Just being like, oh, we're getting into gaming. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, first of all, if you don't know, I'm very much so in the Apple ecosystem. I mean, I'm literally taking notes while we're doing the episode. So I'm very conflicted because I do think Apple Arcade has been a very interesting place for new, really small indie games to kind of really find their audience, find success. I also think that Apple has been extremely anti-consumer for in terms of like at least, or actually, I'll say anti-developer because there's obviously the huge lawsuit that they've went through with Epic, which ultimately ended up with them losing and being forced to reinstate Fortnite on the App Store as of like last week. So I don't know. I'm conflicted on that to that regard, but I also think that if they give it the Apple TV treatment, I think that Apple TV cannot imagine that Apple TV is a lucrative business model. Like it just doesn't make sense that they're spending what $300 million on the Formula One movie starring Brad Pitt from Joseph Kosinski, and that is going to turn a profit, right? Like, but at the same time, they're consistently like the quality of their output is really strong. Like the Studio is a show that came out earlier this year. It ended a few weeks ago. That it is very, very good. They have quite a. I mean, like I also think I watched earlier this week actually Killers of the Flower Moon, which is also an Apple original, like Martin Scorsese film. Like, so if they do apply that kind of like, hey, we're not trying to get entirely just like a profit right off the bat. We're trying to just encourage good art. I think there is a place there for that industry to kind of really take advantage of what they're offering. But we'll see how it works because I know there's a lot of rumors right now running around about what Apple announced during WWDC. which is the worldwide developer conference, I think is what it is. Um, One of the other things that they've been saying is like Apple will now move away from iOS numbers. Like instead of just saying like, oh, well, last year was iOS 18, so this is iOS 19. They're just going to move on to years. So like this year will be iOS 25, and next year will be iOS 26, etc. All that stuff we'll wait and see how it works and how it's implemented. But I do think that if Apple does this right, there is a huge market that they'll be able to tap into because that ecosystem, once you're in, it's so convenient. Like the amount, I can't tell you the how convenient it is being in the Apple ecosystem. Like, I can literally move like, I have like I showed you, I take my notes on my iPad, not just for like the podcast, like it's for like work. I take all my like notes on here. I can move my mouse, which I'm also running this off of Mac. I can move my mouse down and just start moving my mouse onto my iPad, or like the ecosystem's really tightly knit, and so I'm hoping that they do something well. But I also heard that the video game ports like Assassin's Creed and Resident Evil don't really run well. So
And that's kind of
we'll
the
see.
big thing. It's like, you can package like achievements and party chat and all this other stuff through your Apple ecosystem, but if nobody's playing the games on there, then it's like, what's the point? I was gonna ask,
Yeah.
like, as somebody that is tied into the Apple stuff, like, what does this need to have to get you on board? Or do you think that, you have PlayStation, you have Steam, you have Xbox, you're good?
Well, I think it would be it would need to be a competitor to what Xbox is doing. So like, if you buy a game, it's across all your platforms, like, iPad, Mac, or whatever, like your iPhone. And I'm also running like like my Mac is an M2 Mac. I have an M4 iPad, M4 Mac, Air, fucking MacBook. So I'm running like the newest versions of the M chips are actually incredible. Their performance is crazy. So I'm hoping that we get those like, full integration where they're able to take care or take advantage of those kind of those processors and those increased performance and stuff. So as long as it's done to you know if it's like PlayStation, right? You get in and you have the games, and then they're not just playable, but the achievements are all tied in. Like it's all kind of one. It feels unified, and it feels rewarding to kind of number go up.
Mm-hmm.
If they get that part right, I think I would be at the very least kind of like intrigued enough to kind of give it a go. But again, who knows? I mean, Google Stadia has gone to the way with Amazon Luna somehow still kicking, but who knows how long that'll kind of stick around. So I just don't want another kind of boring thing like that.
Yeah, that's what I think is, I'm more so viewing this as like, it's just like when Amazon or Google said it. It's like it was that couple years ago, everybody's like, we're getting into gaming, guys. And then it's just like, oh shit, like, Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo are still the only ones that are, worth a damn. And PC, I guess, with Steam and Epic Game Store, I guess. But
yeah. And even like that's the thing. Like even Epic Game Store has been around for a while, but like I don't think that it's doing extremely well. I mean, they tried for years to literally just be like, hey, like look at this free game. Wouldn't you want to play it over here? And it's like, oh, thanks, I'll take it. But like, I mean, I have to admit, like probably for like 2 years, I went in and I bought I redeemed every single free game, and I don't even have Epic installed anymore. Like, like it's just sitting on my library, but I'm just not engaging with that ecosystem. So, yeah, it really would take a lot to. I think it's a similar system of like what again Xbox. Like, it's going to be a place where like unless the only way that it would be successful is it brings in non-gamers into the gaming ecosystem. I don't think it's going to be like someone's a PlayStation gamer and they're like, "What? Apple has a thing? I'm selling my PS5." Like that's not going to happen. So yeah, there you go. That's my Apple rant. I'm a firm believer that Apple, when they put their mind to it, deliver a really solid product, I think. But will they do that? We'll have to find out. But for now, I'm staying away from the doctor though, because I got a lot of apples around me. So I haven't been to the doctor in a long time. But of course, Nick, before we get to the doctor talk, we gotta take a quick break. I gotta go, fucking feed the animals. I don't know. You gotta tend to you gotta go beat some people up on the streets.
I
So
gotta
like,
go
what do you
sit
say?
down.
Yep, that too. So, what are you thinking? What do you think we should?
Yeah, I think we there should be a sponsor or two kicking around. Let's kick it over to them for a little bit of that screen time, and then we'll be right back.
Yeah, I want to get down there just in case. Like, I don't know what it does yet, so just in case it takes a bit of time. I want to give us plenty of time to do it.
Yeah.
Is it one of the, okay, that's an Evertrail. Okay.
Alright, I opened it.
Oh
Oh,
shit!
it summoned a fucking dog!
Right on. Great sponsors as always. So,
Absolutely.
Sri, we got predictions to do. You and I, we like, watching game broadcasts and showcases and all this stuff. We like seeing what companies are going to squeeze us for next. And we're right around the corner for this summer's season here. So we got Summer Game Fest on June 6th, and we have the Xbox Games Showcase on June 8th. It is currently May 28th at the time of recording, so we're pretty much like a week out from both of these, week and a half. I figured that I would start this off by just kind of giving the what we know on both of these, because that's very minimal currently, and then we can just kind of go back and forth and do a little bit of wishing and informed guessing and speculating on what we think we're gonna see.
Yeah. I will say, I don't know if this is what you were kind of hinting at, but before we kind of fully dissect everything, here's what we have in terms of the SGF schedule. So obviously, as you were saying, Nick, on June 6th, we have the main event, the Summer Game Fest. After that, we also have Day of the Devs, again, in collaboration with Summer Game Fest. June 7th, I'll also give time. So June 6th at 5 p.m. is Summer Game Fest. Main event, June 6th at 7 is Day of the Devs. June 7th at 12 p.m. EST, all these are Eastern time, is Wholesome Games Direct. Then we have June 7th at 1 p.m., so literally an hour after that, we have Woman-Led Games, again, a Summer Game Fest edition. June 7th at 2, so an hour after that, is Latin American Games Showcase. 1 hour after that is the South Asian Games Showcase. Man, I gotta get. Southeast Asian games. I was gonna say I gotta get Legend of the Highborn on there. June 7th at 4. So an hour after that is Green Games Showcase. And then a few hours after that at 7 p.m. EST on June 7th is Frosty Games Fest, and on June 8th at 1 p.m. is Xbox Games Showcase, obviously along with this time around. I know last year was the Call of Duty Direct, Black Ops 6 Direct. This time around, it's the Outer Worlds 2 Direct. So there you go. That is all the stuff that we know as of when we're recording this. What's going to happen?
Yes, we should also mention up at the front here, because we're talking about scheduling and all of that. No word yet on Sony or Nintendo. There's been some rumors about Sony, whether or not it's going to be like a showcase or a state of play. That's usually the rumor. It's just like, well, what's it going to be? Because state of plays, have some inconsistent quality, I'll say. And then the showcases, they just haven't really done that in a while. And then Nintendo, they're launching their new console, right in the middle of all this on June 5th for Switch 2. So it's like, I could see there being a Nintendo Direct to highlight some more Switch 2 stuff coming this year. At the same time, I'm not sure if they have that prepped or not at this time. So maybe we'll see more about that. But Nintendo also usually just kind of announces like a couple days beforehand, like we mentioned before anyway. So probably won't find out until closer to that week.
Yeah, I agree. But all right, with that said, that's enough of the solid information. Now we gotta hypothesize and speculate. So what are you thinking? Okay, so there's quite a few different ways we can handle it. Obviously, we're going to start with Summer Game Fest, kind of the main showcase, right? So, you just want to go back and forth and see what happens. Like, what's your thoughts?
Yeah. So today I saw that Jeff Keighley had dripped out his first little bit of news, or I guess second. There's two little bits. One is that, surprising almost nobody, that Kojima is going to be on stage in some capacity. So
what?
Whether or not that's Death Stranding 2, whether or not that's OD, or
that's not what I meant to play. That's not what I meant to play. Ignore that. Sorry.
Maybe it'll be for something else, but a safe bet would say probably a Death Stranding 2 trailer of some sort.
Yeah.
And then the only other bit of like news that was kind of shared today is that there are 60 plus partners for this Summer Game Fest, which is a new record, I believe, for their showcases. Yeah. So it's just an infographic with a bunch of different company logos on it. It's a lot of the usual suspects that you would think, but maybe some information here and there to extrapolate out. But yeah, that's currently, that is the only things that we know for a fact are going to be in Summer Game Fest. So I figured maybe we could first kind of highlight what exactly those Jeff Keighley shows are like, and that might enlighten some additional, speculation from the both of us. So if there's one thing that I think comes to mind with the Summer Game Fest showcases, I feel like there's always some kind of like new version of a retro franchise or like a reimagining. We got it a couple years ago with like Metal Slug Tactics. I remember that was kind of like an exciting one. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 was originally announced like leading into Summer Game Fest stuff. And so I think that it's probably a safe assumption that there's going to be some like, retro kind of revival type game that'll be coming at some point in the show.
Sure.
It's usually a safe bet, I feel like.
That's a pretty safe bet to make. I also think, regarding the 60 plus fucking partners, those aren't necessarily all meaning that they will have games exclusives or whatever to showcase. I mean, you have Xbox in there, PlayStation, specifically a Nintendo Switch 2. So that could just literally mean that there's going to be an ad for a Nintendo Switch 2 that plays, et cetera. Day of the Devs is also one of the partners, but like that's because they have a showcase kind of in line with Summer Game Fest. So that kind of knocks out a few kind of big hitters right off the bat. I'm curious, do you have someone who you think will be making this retro? I mean, look, we kind of talked about it at the start of the podcast, like Sega, probably with, one of the new kind of re-releases that they're working on.
Yeah.
Is likelihood. But
honestly, I think that is probably who I would pen to have something new to show. The one game that is from that revival kind of original trailer that I believe is officially like coming out this year is the Shinobi game. Because I've seen that you can get pre-orders for that from like Limited Run and everything. So I think that is coming out within the next couple months here. But I do think that we'll probably see something else from Sega in this front. I would personally hope that it was either Jet Set Radio or Crazy Taxi. Those kind of feel like the two that I feel like people are going to be the most hyped for. I'm personally playing through Streets of Rage right now, and I would be excited to see that, but I'm not sure if that quite hits up to like a Jet Set Radio or Crazy Taxi for a lot of people. And Jeff specifically likes having those moments for like fans to get like hyped at his shows. So I think of any of the ones that they showed, like including like Golden Axe and stuff like that, like I think it's probably going to be Crazy Taxi or Jet Set just based on the recognition factor alone.
Yeah, I think that's probably the safest bet, to be honest.
I think another aspect of Jeff Keighley shows that we both have talked about at length that we don't particularly like is the middle slump of those shows, where it's a bunch of MMOs and mobile kind of adjacent things that usually have a CG trailer and like 10 seconds of gameplay at the end. So I'm not, you can't really even speculate on some of that stuff. The one thing that I kind of threw in our list that I was like, usually Hoyoverse stuff kind of lives in this block. So
always, and I say this with love because they did sponsor us. Shout out Hoyoverse. But yes, I agree that they will absolutely, like, they have so many games constantly like that are actively in development or actively kind of in progress that you can expect a trailer for one of their games to show up here.
Yeah, Honkai Star Rail or Zenless Zone Zero, something like that. Yeah, it's pretty much a lock.
Yeah.
It might even be a lock that all three of them kind of show up and have new updates and everything like that. So, one other thing, I know I'm kind of bouncing around here a lot, Sri, so I feel like this is going to be the flow of this conversation. The other big key thing in the structure of a Jeff Keighley show is, I feel, the one more thing. And it's something...
Absolutely. That's what I was going to say, yeah.
It's something that he's been very inconsistent on, let's say, with some of those shows. Sometimes he really nails it with a really exciting big announcement like an Elden Ring, and sometimes we get the Fast and Furious Showdown, or whatever that game was, at Game Awards, where it was... it ended up not being that exciting at the end, let's just say
Sorry,
that.
Nick,
So,
I'm sorry that you're not all about family, okay?
yeah, that's why.
It's not Jeff's fault. I do actually have a prediction for one more thing.
Perfect.
At least like a hope.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm curious if you have one, but mine is, okay. And again, I'm basing this off of the fact that I'm looking at the partner list and I see a little one of those right there. IO is going to be there. And I'm hoping that the one more thing is 007 James Bond, maybe. Give me a little reveal, a little bit of gameplay. Don't just give me the logo and like some vague, James Bond bullshit. I want to see something of substance. I don't want like, you never forget the mistakes you always make. I don't know, fucking something like that. Like,
yeah,
I want something of substance.
I honestly didn't think of that, but I could definitely see that fitting that bill, right? Because at least going off of the last couple Summer Game Fest ones specifically, you had Elden Ring in, I guess that was 2021, because it came out in 22, I believe.
Yeah.
So he got Elden Ring, he got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for one of them, I'm pretty sure. And so like those two right there are big, like kind of third party ones. So yeah, I could totally see, big franchise James Bond, like marquee kind of game from the makers of Hitman. Like, I could definitely see that being a pretty hype way to drop it.
What do you think?
Mine goes
in terms of like one more thing,
well above that, honestly.
Oh fuck.
To the point where it's foolish to put stock in it, right? But
okay.
There have been more than one rumor floating around that Jeff's good friends over at Valve Software have been ticking away at something for a while.
Wow, we're going for the Hail Mary right off the bat, huh?
And
okay.
I think if it is ready and they have a trailer good to go, Jeff is friends with everybody over at Valve. He's been embedded in multiple developments over at Valve. I think we get a teary-eyed, this is one of those moments, gamers, that we wait for.
Yeah.
These are a team that have delivered quality with every single release except for Artifact. And, I have
going to say exactly those same words.
I have immense privilege to be able to reveal to you this final game, and then we get a brand new Half-Life at the end of the show. Whether or not that's Half-Life 3 or just a new Half-Life game, I could definitely see that being like a huge bombshell that he would realistically get access to that would not be at like an Xbox, a PlayStation, a Nintendo kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
Like I said, there's been rumors, there's been, data mines and leaks and all this stuff about a new game in development. And so I would not be shocked to see it eventually. Whether or not I actually think it's going to be at this 2025 Summer Game Fest one, I would be holding my chips a little close. I'm not sure if I would fully commit to that, but I do think that whenever it is revealed, it is probably going to be at a Jeff Keighley event of some kind.
I'll quickly say this. It's not really part of the news, but I did see that essentially Valve's I'll say Gabe Newell's Neuralink competitor is apparently expecting its first brain chip implant this year. So,
oh wow,
maybe we'll see something like that. Come in. Jeff is like, I am the Mind's Eye, and then he also announces Mind's Eye collab, which is of course coming out like the day after or the day of Summer Game Fest.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that. I think of any place that we'll see a trailer from Mind's Eye and like a little gameplay deep dive or something, it's probably going to be Summer Game Fest, I imagine.
Did you see the one? So yesterday, PlayStation and Xbox both put out a 5-minute gameplay showcase of Mind's Eye. Did you see this?
I did not watch it. I did see that they were posting that though.
It was remarkably unremarkable. Like, it was just like that. You're correct. That is a video game. It is playable. It is functioning, and the mechanics that you'd expect in a video game like it are there. But it doesn't have the finesse. Like, there's certain, like, I don't know, there's something about it where I was watching gameplay sequence, like, because again, they it's like this extended sequence where they're showing off like, welcome to the world of Mind's Eye. They're going through that whole rigmarole.
Mm-hmm.
But like they're driving through, and you're like, really? Like, that's the coolest way you could have gotten that person to drive through there. Like, there's things like that where I'm like, the gameplay could have. Look, if I'm not saying that games should lie to you, but if there was ever a time for the games to be like, we're cooler than we actually are, it's the trailers. And I feel like that was the opportunity, and they kind of just were like, no, this is what we got, guys. Here's what it is.
Yeah, I watched like some preview impressions because like some people of press were able to see some stuff early, and it seems like the sentiment is like kind of meh across the board on it. So
did you see the thing about how apparently like they're saying that like the early reviews for Mind's Eye were because someone was essentially like paying people to say that it's bad. Like, it was this whole thing of like, I don't know, there's this conspiracy theory going on, but maybe the AI wants you to think that.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That? Like, while we're on the Mind's Eye tangent here, just like ever since the reveal, like it just doesn't seem like a world that I'm that interested in. It's like it feels like we're trying to do the like near future AI stuff. It's like, well, we're talking about that. Like, that's exciting. That's just what we're living in right now. Like, is the advent of AI and stuff like that. So it's just like, and you see like, again, like just random shots of gameplay where it's just like, okay, we're taking cover and like a drone comes in and you have to attack drones. It's like, okay, well, Watch Dogs was doing that literally like a decade ago. Like, that was their whole thing, was like drones and AI and hacking and all that. So it's just like, I don't know. There's just parts of that where I'm not that into it, but it definitely, again, fits into a Jeff Keighley show. Like, I feel like he revealed it originally, didn't he? Like, at one of his shows.
At this point, I'm not even sure.
Yeah, but, I think it was like a Game Awards or something, or maybe it was this past Game Awards, if I'm, memory serves right.
Oh my fucking God, no! My entire plan just went out the window. I just looked at who was publishing Mind's Eye.
Oh, it's IO, isn't it?
IO Interactive.
Yeah.
Shit. Oh, shit.
You never know.
It's gonna be a trailer for this. It's gonna be a trailer for Mind's Eye. I just fucked myself. Okay.
Set your expectations appropriately, but maybe they double dip and they also give you James Bond.
Yeah.
Swallow your Mind's Eye, and then you can have the James Bond after.
You gotta eat your Mind's Eye before we get to the James Bond. Yeah. All right. What next? We're back to the predictions.
Yeah. So basically, on our little docket here, Sri, I just have a big list of games that I put down there. That's just like, things that are announced, things that are rumored to come out. I did see who's doing Arc Raiders. Do you know? Is that Embark? I think
it's Embark who are also the they are one of the partners. They're also the developers of the finals. So probably one or both we could probably see at this event.
Yeah, because I think
is my guess.
You know, in the general topic sphere, like you mentioned, I think last week about how Arc Raiders was kind of starting to pop off a little bit here. So I think maybe that they would have something prepped for, like, I don't know where they're at in their development, because isn't it like alpha testing or something like that?
Yeah, but I mean, look, Marathon was in alpha testing, and that game's is still slated for September, I think.
So I think Arc Raiders is probably a solid option. Again, I think that's another one that was originally revealed at a Jeff Keighley showcase. So I think another thing that he likes to do is like, hey, we revealed this years ago. Here's the new look at it. So I definitely think that's a proper candidate for that. I think like FBC Firebreak, we're getting pretty close to launch there. So it's just like, hey, launch trailer for FBC Firebreak. Like I could see that happening.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's circle back to the Kojima. Do you think it's going to be Death Stranding 2, or do you think we're going to see OD in a more significant way?
So, look, okay, now that I've readjusted and gotten more depressed. Oh my God, Nick, you will not believe who we just got an email from.
Kojima?
Jeff Keighley. I wish. We just got an email from Jeff Keighley, which is great. I'll skim it while we're doing this. But so now that I've readjusted to myself that IO will probably not be showcasing the James Bond game, I actually think that you know what? I'm gonna say what you said about IO. It'll be a double dip. All right, we get Death Stranding 2 during the showcase, and at the end, here's one more thing, and here's the I don't know, something new from Kojima. Not new, but like something we haven't seen from Kojima. I know he's announced that Xbox exclusive game, and then like there's also like the other, like, I guess it's not a console exclusive, but there's another game that he's working on. So
yeah, OD is the Xbox one, and then Fizzant is going to be the like MGS spiritual successor that's still years away.
Yeah, so I think that Fizzant or one of those we'll probably see at the one more. I can see that as the kind of the big showcase ender. Okay, chat. I hate to be. No, there's no chat. We're not live. But
comments.
All right, no big surprise. No big surprises. Jeff did not leak the entire list. He just kind of teased a little bit and said Hideo Kojima will be also joining the showcase live. So there you go.
Yeah. I think we're a little bit early for something like the Max Payne remakes from Remedy showing up at any place. I think it's going to be FBC Firebreak if Remedy's showing off anything, unfortunately. I would be super hyped for Max Payne remake, but yeah, I think we're probably still a couple years out from that. Borderlands 4, I think that's probably a lock. They've already had like 15 trailers, so what's another one for I almost said state
the
of
new
play.
Trailer
Summer Game
The new
Fest.
trailer will be like, we'll just say, if you want it, you'll find a way to pay for it.
At this point, that's probably what they should do. They should just lean into it and make it
Lean
a joke. Get a load of this guy. What's he know about?
Yeah. Okay. All right. What else? What else catches your eye in terms of like what to expect? I mean, look, there's the wild swings which when we get to Xbox, I think there's probably some of those more crazier ideas. But
yeah, the Jeff Keighley show, it's always just like, it's what are the interesting third party and kind of indie-ish realm that like can be talked about, or like the handful of companies like a FromSoft that aren't like directly bought by anybody. So I like looking through this list. Star Wars Eclipse, that got announced a long time ago and has had like nothing.
Wait, didn't that get canceled?
I didn't think it got canceled.
Okay,
but possibly. Honestly, I wasn't paying that close attention.
I could be wrong, but yeah.
Dying Like the Beast, Jeff had I think last year, so that's probably.
That's what I was actually going to say. That's probably one that I think will be there. Not just because it's like they're one of the listed partners, who's it? Techland, yeah. Techland is one of the listed partners, but
Hmm.
I also think it's coming up on release, and so I feel like it is now time to see more of that game, maybe some sort of gameplay preview or something. Yeah. By the way, Star Wars Eclipse not canceled. The website's still up, so at the very least, it's something still happening for it. But anyway,
Yeah.
going back again, I'm just looking through some of the partners. I mean, that's kind of where I've really gotten my list.
Hmm.
Where I can really hypothesize. The easy one is that like Silk Song is going to be there. I'm not even a big yacht club guy, but I just know that like it has been at a fever pitch, the excitement for that game. So I feel like we'll probably see something
You
with Silk Song.
you just sparked something in my mind. What if that's the one more thing? And it's like it's a reveal, but it's like, hey,
and
it's
out
coming
now.
out. Yeah, exactly. It's I could
Dude,
see it. Like that would be
it-
a pretty big megaton.
that would break the gamer internet. Like
Mm.
if because like and this is. I totally get it. Games can be super emotional and like you build attachments to them, but like I've seen people literally just like what was it, the Nintendo Switch 2 showcase or whatever, there was like a fucking seconds of gameplay and people
Mhm.
were just in tears about this, and I'm like, yeah, so if there were shadow dropping Silk Song, I can imagine that how the internet would just like the gaming side of the internet would just erupt.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. um
Oh,
okay, there's go ahead.
I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say, how could I forget this? I just looked over there and saw it. There's also been some rumors and rumblings of this, and I've personally been predicting it for years, and it has not come true at any of these showcases. But I think maybe this year it might be time for BioShock again. Something like either
You
that
fucking
BioShock
wish.
4 or the newest batch of rumors is like possibly maybe a remake of the first game or like a more in-depth remaster for the first game.
Yeah.
So that I think is the perfect kind of like Keeley would be like, yeah, hype, BioShock new game for
No,
that.
I agree.
Yeah.
That would be a big one. That he, I mean, he's definitely a sucker for like, how do we get the people going nuts, right?
Like, I don't think it's a closer, a show closer, but it might be like that, like first one or two where it's just like, hey, something hyped to get people excited at the front.
kind of going off of maybe games that we know will to some degree will be there. Splitgate 2. I see 1047 games are on the list. So I know that Splitgate 2 is getting ready to kind of to really get going. They had an open beta earlier this week, I think, right? No, last week. I think they had their open beta or whatever. So I imagine that we'll see something with Splitgate 2, even if it is just like, hey, here's a new trailer and it's coming out. Maybe a release date for Splitgate 2. There's also Soft Rains is going to be is a partner for the showcase. And if you've not heard of Soft Rains, it's a game studio focused on bringing world-class development experience to our work, from world building and memorable storytelling to immersive gameplay and art. And it's a team that's kind of consists of people who've previously worked on everything from Skyrim and Fallout to Watch Dogs and Valorant and Left 4 Dead. But they're currently working on, specifically Soft Rains, they're working on an unannounced game with a new IP. And it is a forthcoming game that is a first-person single-player action game set in a lush, fantastical sci-fi world. They have a few concept arts and stuff on their website, but I imagine we'll at the very look. There's not even a title for this game, so I imagine we'll get maybe a title reveal or like some sort of little reveal trailer here for Soft Rain's debut title.
Yeah.
At the Summer Games Showcase or Summer Game Fest.
Do you think? I don't think I saw anything on the partner list or whatever, but do you think that War Inspector game, Thick as Thieves, I think is what it's called, that was at
Dude, that
Game
game looks so
Awards?
sick.
Do you think like we might see like something updated there, depending on where that's at?
I hope so. That game looks so cool. I love just like the way that game was framed was so interesting to me. that I hope we see more of it, and I hope we see gameplay of it. But I also don't want to see like really bad scripted gameplay. Like I want to see like natural kind of just like, hey, here's a 2 minutes of just diegetic gameplay, and see how it experiences. But yeah, I would love to see it. I don't think we will. I don't think we'll necessarily see it. There.
I'm kind of with you on that. I don't think we're gonna see it.
Look, we can also knock out like some easy ones, like Razor. Like that's just not, like no. Here's a new Razor Death Mouse 5. Like that's gonna be there. PlayStack, sure. Pearl Abyss, they're gonna have one of their MMOs, I'm sure. So there's a few we can knock out there, and there's also some that I'll admit that I don't fully know like what they're working on. Like, what's NeoWiz working on, or what's Newverse working on? And Niantic is gonna be there. They just sold Pokemon Go back to to another company that's working on the Monopoly games. We covered that a few weeks ago over on the podcast. So I wonder if that's like a new Niantic game. You think there's any new Niantic game that could get you back in, like to that phone game era?
Nah.
No universe. They can.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't even think like a Fallout version would get me in. Like,
wow. Imagine this, Nick. All right, close your eyes and imagine it's Streets of Rage Niantic. All right, you're going around, and then as you go around, there's thugs, and then you have to
there are other
beat 'em
real
up.
players. There are other real people. Maybe I could get behind that. Like, let's go. The NeoWiz thing. I think that is Lies of P. Maybe the Lies of P DLC.
Oh shit! Yeah, I don't know how I forgot about that. By the way, I meant to say this last week because it was announced. Lies of P is getting obviously this DLC, which is like a whole 15 hours of gameplay or whatever. But they're also adding difficulty to the game. Like you can select the difficulty that you want to play
weird.
As, which is fucking bonkers. Okay, how are you gonna do this to me? Okay, this is the one fucking Souls-like that I've beaten, and now like you can play it on easy mode and like get through it. Like fuck, god damn it.
Well, now you can go to FromSoft. You can play the ones that don't have difficulty sliders.
I'm already prepared to get my ass handed to me in Night Rain. There's not even a doubt in my mind. All right. So another thing, we have Moonfish. They are the developers of Atomic Heart, which was like the big kind of indie hit that kind of really took people by surprise. They will also be there. Will that just be a new trailer, or will it like be like a DLC kind of like showcase? A new trailer for a new game, or will it just be like an Atomic Heart DLC? We're not sure. Obviously, we don't know, but I think it would be interesting for them to show off a new game. I do think that isn't with some of these smaller indie games that feel more big budget, they're surprisingly like fast turnarounds. And I say this mainly because recently we had the game Stellar Blade that came out, and then there's like currently talk that the Stellar Blade sequel could come out as soon as next year, which is like a really fast turnaround. So
wow.
I think it's probably like a streamlined, it's kind of what you're saying, Nick, about regarding kind of like Cyberpunk, but like once you understand the engine well, and once you have the assets down, and you can kind of work kind of in a streamlined pipeline, I don't foresee that a sequel would be very kind of far off. So Atomic Hearts 2 or something new, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
What else you got?
Honestly, for Jeff Keighley, there's like a couple other tiny ones. Like I saw, Power Wash Simulator 2. Like I could see that being like a fun little announcement here or there. Something from THQ. I bet. Like while I was browsing, I was using like
THQ one of them.
I don't know if they're even on there. To be honest with you,
I love me some THQ. I think if they are on there, probably Gothic. I'd say we could probably see something like there.
Oh, I do see Yacht Club on here, so that I did list was Mina the Hollower. We'll probably see something from them, unless it's something that they're publishing. But
yeah, CD Projekt Red is on there. So what do you
Witcher
think?
5.
I mean, Witcher, yeah, Witcher 5. Probably something from Blumhouse because they're working on a few different kind of horror games at the moment. So it's some typical stuff that you can expect. 505, probably that RoboCop stuff that they've been teasing at. Focus Entertainment, obviously. I mean, maybe another look at Space Marine 2 Siege Mode or whatever it is. Nothing kind of crazy. Anything for you that?
Yeah, I think we covered Summer Game Fest pretty good.
I'll actually also say one more thing because I did see at the end here Supermassive Games, the Directive
80-20,
28,
I think.
80-20. Fuck. That's stupid. 80-20. I think we'll probably see that because that's coming up. I think on for release, and so it's about time we see something from there. MetaQuest probably just an ad
for sure. Yeah, that or like Arkham Shadow 2 or something along those lines. I bet.
I need to play Arkham Shadows. I have it. I just haven't committed to it. I need a fucking girl pair.
You got to get back into your VR headspace. I was the same way. I got all that VR stuff recently, and I was just like, I don't want to play this right now.
No, so here's the thing. I've I go through phases. I've got. I don't know if you guys could tell. I've put on a little bit of weight. So in June, I'm going on my on a VR exercise break. All right. So follow the podcast to see updates on how I'm faring with this whole journey that I'm gonna go on starting next episode. It's gonna be interesting. I'm literally like so my goal is to I'm gonna get like some sort of I'm gonna pick what kind of game I'm going for. I don't know if I'm gonna buy Creed 3 or Creed game again, Creed VR, and kind of play that again or something new, but I'm going to do that every day. Plus, eating not shitty food and see how that works on my health. So stay tuned. Come back for more.
Do you want to move on to Xbox now? I think let's
do it, dude. There's so much we can. Yeah. There's so much. There's quite a few things we can. Hold on. Let me actually pull up my doodles real fast. Let me scroll away from my Nick fan fiction that I've been doodling at here. Quickly, Wu-Chang Fallen Feathers. I think we'll probably see that as well at Summer Game Fest specifically. Mistfall Hunter. Okay, so this is, if you don't know, Mistfall Hunter is the PvPvE extraction shooter that's being developed by Bellring Games. I think again this is something. It has a lot of heavy Souls-like vibes. If you haven't seen it, especially Elden Ring vibes. I think that's one we'll probably see. And then the last one I have here is a new game from the Phasmophobia devs. Now I'm only saying that because the Phasmophobia devs are on the list. So it could be another trailer for Phasmophobia, but I'm going big, all right? So I'm saying something new from those developers. What will it be? Well, we'll find out next week.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Now we can talk about Xbox because there's a lot of juicy stuff you can dig into here. Obviously there's the big one that you've listed. I'll let you hit that one.
Halo. Is that the big one?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think we see something Halo for sure this year, whether or not it's like the Combat Evolved remake that's been rumored, or if it's like something entirely different. I would probably put my money on Combat Evolved, but I do think they probably want something Halo this year. And it wasn't last year, and I don't think there was something a year before that either. So it's been a minute since Halo has had like screen time.
I agree with you. I think that Halo would be the next kind of thing that they would introduce. My only reservation would be either like how early would you think that they would be willing to showcase this? Because I don't think that it would be wise for them to both release Gears of War and Halo like right after each other. And I think Gears of War is October or September, October, like somewhere like later this year. So I think that's the only reason why I think Halo might not necessarily show up here. But go ahead.
I think what I foresee happening would be when Halo Infinite was first revealed. It was just kind of like a bunch of, shots of the Halo ring. You didn't really recognize it at first because it was like nature shots and stuff like that. And then you get that pull-out shot, and it's Master Chief holding the helmet and puts the helmet on. I could see if they wanted something to release with it, I could see an early trailer of Combat Evolved Remake and then be like, hey, Combat Evolved is launching on PlayStation, the original one. Or like launching on Switch as well, Switch 2. Because apparently, according to messaging from Xbox and everything, they're not going to shy away from saying that games are launching on other platforms going forward. So I could see like an early, like, the remake's not gonna come out for a couple years, but to hold you over, here's the first game that you can enjoy from the Master Chief Collection's relaunch, more or less, on new platforms.
Or I'm trying to think, like, would it make sense for a ground up remake of Halo Combat Evolved or Halo Infinite multiplayer, because that's already free to play? What are the odds that Halo Infinite shows up? Like, hey, hop in for free as a multiplayer game.
I didn't think about that, but I think if they wanted to try to respark Halo Infinite a bit, like, they've been getting some more combat. They've been getting some more content updates over the last couple months, and they've been slowly working on that game for a while. So I don't know. It really depends on what they value more. Would it be sparking up interest in Halo Infinite again, or just leaving Halo Infinite to kind of like run its course and then reintroduce everything from the ground up and everything? I don't know. I can see it, but I think at the bare minimum, I think something Halo related is probably going to be teased or talked about this year.
Yes, I agree. I think I hope so, at least, because I think Xbox is, kind of, I don't want to say they're on the high, but like there was the news that essentially Forza Horizon, was it 5, right? Forza Horizon 5 sold more copies on the PlayStation 5 than Assassin's Creed Shadows did. And I think that sets up like this, and that sets up an interesting like dynamic of like, Xbox is a competitor on PlayStation, or a publisher on PlayStation that's to compete with. So like how do they follow that up? I think that there's a lot of attention on them kind of seeing where that goes. So I really hope that they do kind of capitalize on that. Now, they could also just be like, hey, here's an extended look at the Gears of War, I guess, but that'd be the that would be the boring version to predict, and we don't want that. We want to get exciting stuff.
Let's talk about my old friends Bethesda, because I've seen people online speculate, like, with how well Oblivion did, like, do you get a re-reveal / a new teaser for Elder Scrolls 6? I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. No way in hell that's happening.
I agree. I think Bethesda's learned their lesson on that, like, early ass reveal. Like super. I really think that Elder Scrolls 6 reveal was just being like, hey, it's happening. Just so like the leaks don't beat us to the punch.
Yeah,
it's happening and it's coming out sometime. I don't think we necessarily see anything directly from Bethesda in terms of, look, again, if we're going for Hail Marys, goddamn, I hope they're like, here's Fallout 3 remastered, fucking out now. Like sure, I would be, incredibly elated. But
when I say the pop off would be astronomical, that is, I unfortunately think we're a little early for it, but when that day comes, and that day is going to come, the pop off, I might need a new desk. Like, it might shatter.
And when it happens, that day will not be the only thing that comes. So I'm very excited for that one. But no, I think that, I don't know. I don't think we'll necessarily see that. But that being said, we also have to consider, right, like the pacing of this Xbox thing. They're saying that Outer Worlds 2 is their flagship for this year, right? Like that's the one that they're gonna have the direct following the main showcase, which means that they'll probably have like a trailer during the actual showcase, and then find out more after this with the direct. So
Yeah.
would they have two things? Would they have both? I'm not sure. I think it would entirely. Go ahead.
The thing that I'm expecting out of Bethesda, out of this showcase, I think it's going to be Fallout 76 new content. They usually have some kind of reveal in here. Last year it was that ghouls were going to be getting added to the game. Again, it didn't end up being like a massive update or anything like that, but I think there will probably be some sort of new content or teaser for new content coming to that game. And I think we will get a trailer for Starfield's second DLC expansion, which has been in the works since Shattered Space, essentially. So hopefully it's a little bit better than Shattered Space, but I do think we see that.
I don't necessarily like. I mean, I will also say that Xbox has gotten pretty good at getting like non-console exclusive stuff at their showcases as well. Specifically like last year, but I don't necessarily know what that would be. I mean, I know that they could show off like a mouse PI for hire, like they could. There's these games that they could kind of just throw in and be like, here's something cool coming. But Perfect Dark, maybe. I
could see a new trailer for that, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think we'll. I don't think we'll get a release date though.
It feels like one of those games that's going to be in development for like a decade, right? Where it's just like, we could see like 8 trailers for this before we get a release date.
Yeah, and I hope that's not the case. But it definitely has like that, like the tendencies there for a long development cycle. I don't know, dude. What do you think that like what could Xbox do that would genuinely surprise you?
Well, surprise!
I mean, like Fable out this fall, like would that be like, oh, finally, like
they already
happening.
like delayed that, so I think that's real pie in the sky. Like we're going back on a delay, like to bring it out. I do think the one issue that I've personally had with the Fable trailers is that they've all followed a very similar formula, where it's like in-engine visuals and stuff like that. Again, I don't know if I would necessarily be surprised by this, but I would like to see like a 5-minute gameplay uninterrupted section of that game. I think that's something that they definitely need to show at this point after the delay and everything, and after the other trailers. Like we've had like clips and things like that be circulated out there, but it's like I want to see like a quest in Fable and how that works, and how exploration, talking to NPCs. I want to see how the game actually works and not just like the cutscenes.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that previously, I mean, there's no, we kind of touched on it earlier about like there's no PlayStation showcase or state of play officially announced as of when we're recording this. And it could be like, we're on like next Tuesday and they're like, Tom, 2 days from now there'll be a state of play. That's very much so a Sony thing to do. And I think that would be the place I would expect a Resident Evil 9 to show up, something like that. But if not, it would be, I think that it makes sense that Capcom kind of hitches their wagon to either a Summer Game Fest or an Xbox games showcase and says, hey, here's the next Resident Evil coming.
Yeah, we didn't even mention Resident Evil earlier. That seems like it's about due for a new game finally after 4 remake.
I think that I have to look through my old files because I don't know if you remember. We've talked about it in our kind of in our have we named it officially like season 0 of the podcast? The old season. We've talked about it in the episode where it was the E3 dying, or E3 going away, but I have a lot of fond memories of E3, obviously, but one of the things that I have to like is in my archives, like it's in some drive somewhere that I have, which was Sony used to do these state of plays where you could go to theaters, and it's called PlayStation Experience, and you could go to theaters, and I went there for 2 or 3 years, and I remember the experience. There's a few games that they announced that I will forever remember. Like it is like engraved in my memory. And one of them was the Resident Evil 7 reveal of like this really moody gameplay is first person, and then it was like this like before kitchen, which was like this like tech demo that was going around.
Mm-hmm.
That hype and that reveal of coming in with that like the 7 and then the Resident Evil fades in, it's like, and I have the theater reaction of like everyone freaking out while this is happening. Oh man, that is some stuff we got to put up on YouTube for people to experience. But I hope they somehow manage to get Resident Evil 9 to get that same experience. I don't know how they would do it. I don't know what the experience, like, I don't know how you would.
It's tough because Resident Evil at that time, right? Like 7 was coming after 6, obviously, which was like a low point for a lot of people.
Right.
And to have
it
something
was panned
new,
by critics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To have something new that everybody's like, oh shit, that looks awesome, and it's Resident Evil. They're back. Like,
and it was also like, there's multiple factors, right? Like they announced this tech demo and they didn't say what it was. That was a factor. The fact that it was a first person game, and obviously Resident Evil has historically been third person, that's another factor. Like what do they do with Resident Evil 9 that would make you like be like, oh, like, I mean, like, they go back to third person, but then like, I don't know. I don't know how that would work, but I honestly think it's impossible. I don't think I don't think you can get that level of kind of surprise out of people again. But yeah, for Resident Evil specifically,
they're back, like, and they've been putting out good stuff. So it's just like at a certain point, it's gonna start getting to the point again where it's like we're getting to the Resident Evil 5 and 6 era where it's just like, okay, it's kind of being safe a little bit each time, and then they drop the one that's like not great, and then it disappears again for a while.
They already did that with Resident Evil. What is it? Revelation? No, Resistance. One of those. Yeah, but I don't know. And then there's stuff like, I know you have it listed here for Star Wars Zero Company. Personally, I gotta be honest, I don't even know if we'll see that thing here. I think it's probably far too early. It's another one of those like, hey, it's coming. We don't want you to. We don't want it to be super leaked, but it's happening, I guess.
Yeah, I think of the list that I have in here, the one thing that we haven't talked about that I am expecting to see there is Clockwork Revolution. This is the one from In Exile from a couple years ago that looked a lot like BioShock Infinite. This one's been cooking for a while, and I would hope to see a new look at that again. That feels like, to me, it's kind of like in that same kind of Perfect Dark zone where it's like I could see a new trailer but not a release date still, depending on how ambitious that game is. But
I forgot about this one. But yeah,
that, and
I mean, is it what kind of game is it? Because I mean, obviously, In Exile is historically made like the RPG, like the
Wasteland and stuff like that. This, I think there is footage in that original trailer that is first person. I'm not sure if it's directly like a first person shooter.
Well, on Steam, it's listed as a first person steampunk RPG.
Okay.
Okay.
So definitely one to keep an eye on. The other one that I have in here that I remembered that I don't know if you remember this either was Contraband. Do you remember that game?
It sounds familiar, but I don't think I've kept tabs on it enough. It was to really
announced at an Xbox showcase with a CG trailer like years ago. It's a new game from the people that did Mad Max and Rage 2 with id.
Oh, not super massive.
Is it just Massive? Oh, maybe.
It could be Massive. It could be Massive.
Mad Max game developer.
A co-op smuggler. Oh, Avalanche.
Avalanche. Yes, that's it.
It's a co-op smuggler's paradise set in the fictional world of 1970s Bayan. Play one with Game Pass and Xbox Series XS.
So,
and that's and the logo is all that's up for that right now.
Yeah, it was just a CG trailer and then nothing. So, I don't know. Maybe we get hey, it's finally ready. Take a look at this. One I didn't list on here, but I did see some people talking about is State of Decay 3. We got that kind of like re-reveal last year, so maybe we see like gameplay, and I could see that being ready for a release date finally. Like that's been kicking around for a while.
Yeah, that game does look really cool though. I mean, I've recently come off my own zombie adventure with d- uh, d- uh, Into the Dead, but
Hmm.
that one I feel like Into the Dead has been very influenced by that game, and I'll be interested to see how that game's iteration kind of follows with how those games have succeeded in the past. Um,
I have a wild
Look,
one that I don't have listed on
oh,
there.
okay, yeah, go for it.
This is where they finally pull the cord, and they're gonna do Banjo Kazooie, something, and it's not gonna be from Rare, but it's gonna be some other team is doing Banjo Kazooie.
There it goes.
I don't really
Yeah.
believe that, but I kind of wanted to say it and just put it out there.
I do think, I don't know if Banjo, but I do think the developers of Ukulele are listed as one of the partners. I forget what their name is, but I believe
It's
they are one
Platonic.
of the partners for. Yes, Platonic is definitely on here, right?
Is
Am I
that for
imagining that? I feel
Summer
like,
Game Fest or?
yeah. So I could, I don't know. I feel like we could maybe see something from them. I know they're working on some after Ukulele because they just released like a revert not
Replay
remixed.
E, I think is how they called
Yes.
it. Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
remaster of the first one.
So they're working on something for there too, but maybe they're not listed. Platonic. Anyway, something like that would be more reasonable, Nick. All right, more reasonable than what you're saying.
Banjo aside, I would really like to see some kind of platformer from Xbox because I do think that the
Psychonauts 3.
bro, that would surprise me and get me excited if we saw a trailer like that.
Sure.
Because
I mean, hey, you can read Nick's thoughts on Psychonauts 2 on RespawnStation.com.
Double Fine has been cooking on something since then. Like as far as I'm aware, they have not had any other games shipped from Psychonauts 2. And I think I would be excited about Psychonauts 3. I think a lot of people might not share that excitement because Double Fine is supposed to kind of be this pillar of like, what new crazy thing are they doing? And Psychonauts 2 was kind of the first time that they did like a big sequel to one of their games. So I would be excited about that. I think a new Double Fine game though, I think it's ready. Depending on what it is, if it's a Psychonauts 2 scale game and they've been working on it for the last like 4 years, then I think it'd be about time for a reveal for that. But just to close off that point that I brought up about the platformers, it's like I feel like the last couple Xbox showcases have just been like, very similar types of games. And I know that that's kind of like a criticism of Xbox and stuff, but it's like you have your shooters, you have your RPGs, you have your racing games. Like we're good on that stuff, but I feel like something just like a 3D platformer, they need like something kind of to spice it up a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like Mouse PI for Hire was kind of that slot in, but like that's more so just from like a visual kind of standpoint, I feel like, to break up things versus like, a truly different kind of like game that we're highlighting.
Yeah. Jumping quickly back to Summer Game Fest, I will say that I know PlayStation's listed. It would make sense that Ghost of Yotei just has something because I know that it's slated for later this year.
Mm-hmm.
Just as hey, this game still is on the horizon. It's coming out soon. Though I don't think there's definitely going to be at least one Ghost of Yotei themed state of play coming out before the release of that game to really showcase it. So, yeah, I mean that's kind of the big ones that I've had. I don't know, is there anything else that you any predictions that you had before?
Nah, honestly, there's like a couple of other tiny ones here and there. Like I see you just highlighted Reanimal and Little Nightmares 3. Like those usually appear at any of these. I think Replaced is another one that has been at a couple of the Jeff Keighley ones, maybe an Xbox one. So
I was just looking at Reanimal because I think it's slated for this year.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's probably a lock for one of them at least.
Yeah, and another THQ, Nordic, and Amplifier Studios. So Reanimal I think makes sense. That game looks great, and obviously this is from the developers of Little Nightmare 1 and 2 that they've stepped away for Little Nightmares 3 to work on this game, while Little Nightmares 3 is being developed by Supermassive, I think. So, yeah, interesting. Well, anything else, Nick, before we sign off for the?
I'm excited to see what comes true and what we're left on the chopping block for coming up here. This time of year, it always kind of sneaks up on me, where it's just like it always feels like forever away, and then it's like you're in the spot we are now, where it's like, okay, next week we are gonna have a lot to talk about. Like,
yes, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of first reactions, and we're gonna try our best to have like live showcase reactions, because I think those are always just one incredibly fun for us to do.
mm-hmm.
But at the very least, you know, I think they're also kind of like interesting for people to watch. You know, I think there's a huge kind of audience for people like watch, like, you know, oh, I love this game and I want to see these people react to that game being announced. But just kind of retroactively for like posterity, like it's I think really interesting to have those kind of reactions, because I can go back and see like certain reactions that we've done, like to certain games. Nick, I don't know if you remember, but like when Starfield was announced and they did, or not announced, but it was one of the Starfield showcases when they were doing that, like, this is just one planet, and then they'd zoom out and it's like we're just like, oh, what the fuck. Like it was this it was one of those moments that, you know, that's kind of the reason why we do this, do what we do here. So we'll try our best to get that out and orchestrated for you guys. So obviously be sure to subscribe and all that fun stuff to see that. But Nick, is there anything else that you wanted to cover, or you want to take it home?
Nope.
And he's gonna die.
Yep, that was my final note. If you did enjoy this podcast and these predictions, be sure to give us a like and you know, put down in the comments what you're excited for. What do you think you're gonna see at these showcases, everything. And with all that said, have a good morning, a good night, and a damn good time.